news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 24th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 19 degrees, 18 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Thick fog this morning delayed play at the Pro-Am at the Hunt Club. LPGA players and their amateur partners in the warm-up to tomorrow's start of the LPGA event. Local favourite Brooke Henderson, tee time today, delayed to 11:30 now. Tomorrow, play for real begins. Brooke will tee off just around 1 o'clock. She is one of 18 Canadians in a 156 golfer field.
The Smiths Falls native looking forward to playing at home in front of thousands expected to follow her every day. But also she's looking forward to the rink, where fans can gather around the hockey-themed hole, make some noise, and cheer on the players.
Yeah, I got my son's jersey out. I'm ready. I think it's really cool, and it's fun, kind of take some of the unique things that the men have at the RBC Canadian Open and bring it over to the women's side. I think is awesome.
She says it reminds her of when she used to play hockey and expects it to be a unique fan experience. And she's already heard a bit of noise from her practice rounds.
There's been so many people out watching, and it's just amazing to have this much love and support from home.
Henderson tees off at 1:04 on Thursday and in the early morning hours on Friday. Chris Curry's City News.
City News time, 9:01. Now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Sun and cloud for the most part today. Just a slight chance of a shower. The high 29 degrees will feel a lot warmer with the humidity. Some showers this evening, then we'll clear overnight, 16 for the low. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, 24. For today, the high, 29.
And right now it's 19 degrees in Ottawa, 18 in Smiths Falls. It's a bonus program for Canadian airport screening staff and it appears to be having an adverse effect. Here's City News business editor Chris McCusker.
The incentive offers $200 a week to screening officers who work their scheduled shifts. But the union representing staff in Alberta tells the CBC that some have been showing up to work sick in order to qualify. Now, back in June, NDP transport critic Taylor Bachrach called on the Minister of Transport to scrap the program, suggesting this could happen. The workers are contracted by the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority, known as CATSA, and Neil Perry, a vice president at CATSA, told a House of Commons Standing Committee last week that he trusts workers to act professionally. The union has been negotiating a new contract with Garda World since January, and higher wages has been one of the issues. At the City News Business Centre, I'm Chris McCusker.
City News time, 9:03. A judge poised to become the first Indigenous justice on the Supreme Court of Canada will address a parliamentary committee meeting this afternoon.
Today's meeting with MPs and senators will be Michelle O'Bonsawin's first public appearance since Prime Minister Justin Trudeau nominated her for the Supreme Court last Friday. O'Bonsawin comes to the court after serving as a judge at the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in Ottawa for the past 5 years. She's a fluently bilingual Franco-Ontarian and an Abenaki member of the Odanak First Nation. Unlike the process in the United States, a vote by elected officials is not required to cement her appointment. Emily Joveski, The Canadian Press.
And Ukraine's ambassador to Canada will mark Ukraine's Independence Day today in Toronto with an immersive multimedia exhibition. Yulia Kovalev is helping celebrate Ukraine's independence from Russia 31 years ago, but also marking 6 months since the beginning of this Russian invasion. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
A little on the foggy side out there today. Does the canal come equipped with a foghorn? Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Coming up, Ukraine's Independence Day and 6 months of war. 6 months after Russia's illegal invasion of a sovereign country. 6 months of death and destruction. immense geopolitical turmoil. 31 years ago, Ukraine declared its independence from the Soviet Union. And 31 years later, its largest cities are under curfew. A third of its population of 41 million have fled their homes. Entire regions of the country are in ruins, and there appears to be no prospect of peace. It's not a happy anniversary. Cassian Soltykevich is with the Ukrainian Canadian Congress here in Ottawa, and he'll join us in a few minutes' time. From there, we'll focus on what's happening in this country and score our political fix. Plenty in the mix for our political fix. Poilievre tops the list. Poilievre under the heat lamps for a picture of him shaking hands with some noted member of the far right demands for a denunciation not entirely forthcoming. We will get into that. You have this incredible story about this. This is an incredible story. This is an amazing story. And you have an organization that was hired to train those of us in the broadcasting industry about racism. Anti-racism training, which most big companies do already. Anyway, I've worked for two of the biggest. That's been my experience. They do this training already. But the company was hired by the Trudeau government. Consultancy firm called Community Media Advocacy Center. And the government funded its anti-racism training to the tune of $133,000. $133,000 anti-racism training contract. And it turns out that one of the leading lights of this organization, a fellow by the name of Laith Marouf, doesn't have many nice things to say about Jews. Doesn't like Jews. His Twitter account is in fact filled with language about Jews that I would never say on the radio. I don't need to be trained by Mr. Marouf to know that those things are not very nice things to say about people of the Jewish faith, or people of any faith, or people of no faith. It was Jonathan Kay who blew the whistle on this guy, and then it was picked up by other media outlets like the Canadian Press. And now the funding to this organization has been pulled, and the project has been canceled, and everything is under investigation because how does something like that happen? So we're certainly going to talk about that during our political fix this morning. What else is in the mix? Sunday. The election campaign in the province of Quebec will begin on Sunday. And the way things are looking right now, it will be the CAQ in a landslide. And two major political forces, at least for most of my life, are facing near extinction or extinction. The Liberal Party of Quebec appears to be headed for the endangered species list. And the PQ, the once mighty PQ, I mean, René Lévesque's baby, the PQ, the separatists, the Parti Québécois could go extinct. The polls right now suggest that the PQ might not win a single seat. And it would be an overwhelming majority mandate for Premier François Legault, who I think he's the most powerful politician in the country, François Legault. I mean, the race hasn't even started, and I'm already wondering, how did he do this? How did he do this? And what's his next act? He has already passed what I would call illiberal legislation, like Bill 21 on secularism and Bill 96 on language. And I mean, in Quebec, they love him for it. cultural champion. And you can't find a federalist politician in Ottawa who will offer any kind of pushback at all. And given that's the case, you can't help but wonder, what will he do when he secures an even stronger mandate? So that is on our agenda this morning as well. That's coming up right after the 9:30 news this morning here on the Rob Snow Show. From Quebec politics to one of the big stories in Atlantic Canada, but nationally as well, and the hearings, the public inquiry into the murders of 22 people over 2 days in April of 2020 by crazed gunman Gabriel Wortman. Two very high-profile witnesses have been appearing this week at that inquiry in Nova Scotia. The most senior people in the RCMP at the time. Brenda Lucki, Commissioner of the RCMP, Brenda Lucki, began her testimony yesterday, will continue today. And also this week, the public inquiry heard from Lee Bergerman, an assistant commissioner, retired now. She was the top Mountie in Nova Scotia when these murders happened more than 2 years ago. It's called the Mass Casualty Commission, this public inquiry. Our guest this morning at 11:30 wrote the book about that terrible event that lasted 13 hours over 2 days. Paul Palango, author, investigative journalist, once worked for the Globe and Mail, Hamilton Spectator, retired to Nova Scotia to, one assumes, lead a charmed life. And then this happened on his doorstep. And this is his fourth book about the Mounties. And he's very critical of the police response. The book is called 22 Murders, Investigating the Massacre, Cover-Up, and Obstacles to Justice in Nova Scotia. He calls what happened over those 2 days in April of 2020 an epic failure in policing. And he is not impressed with how this inquiry has been designed from the outset, from the get-go, that it is a deeply flawed process. And he did not have high expectations for the testimony from these two witnesses, Bergerman and Lucki. So he is going to join me. We'll have a lengthy conversation this morning, I suspect, at 11:30. And in between all of that, there is you and the Talkback Hour here on the Rob Snow Show. We do it every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I know, I'm trying to think here, at least 5 people who have quit their jobs in the last 2 years. David, you know anybody who's quit a job in the last 2 years?
Oh boy, do I ever.
Say more than 5? 5? Around 5?
About 5, half a dozen or so.
What about you, Noah? You know anybody who's quit their job?
I'd say in the same ballpark, around 5.
Around 5 people. So if there's 3 of us here, we know about 15 people who've quit jobs. Right? I want to talk about jobs, working, work-life balance, help wanted signs, people quitting jobs, labor shortages, have this new term that's making the rounds, quietly quitting. Quietly quitting. I accused David of quietly quitting on me this morning. Quietly quitting is kind of like work to rule. It's kind of like the new term for work to rule. I'm quietly quitting. It means I am going to do the absolute bare minimum that my job requirements are. I'm not working any overtime. As soon as I get home, I'm unreachable. These kinds of things. Don't expect me to come in early. No, I'm not going to pick up an extra shift. That's quietly quitting. I know lots of people who've quit their job in the last 2 years for real. Just, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. I've also spoken on this program to more than a few business owners who have told me, gosh, it's hard to find people to work. And it's tough to keep people on the payroll. The number of job openings in this country is up 60% in 2 years. 60% in 2 years. We have 900,000 job openings in Canada. We also have 1 million people unemployed. We also have 400,000 people who say they want to work, but they're not looking for a job. So this morning during the Talkback Hour, why are there so many job openings? After the 10 o'clock news, 750-1310, 750-1310. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Ukraine is marking its Independence Day today under the threat of more Russian attacks. And the illegal invasion of Ukraine has hit the 6-month mark. Cassian Soltykevich is National Secretary of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
Well, it's quite an emotional day. It's 6 months ago. We know that Russia invaded Ukraine, and It's hard to imagine 6 months ago where we'd be today, but as we see the bravery of Ukraine, the armed forces of men and women who are fighting every single day, are pushing back and fighting for their freedom and democracy, and we're incredibly proud of them, and we're thankful, of course, that we can live in Canada and be in a safe democratic country, but we stand every day and wake up thinking about those people who are defending, honestly, our rights and European freedoms against this tyranny.
Traditionally, before this invasion, even before 2014 and the annexation of Crimea, what would Ukrainians do to mark this day, Ukrainian Independence Day?
Yeah, Ukrainians would gather in the city squares of, European city squares are very, very popular, very well known, and they would gather and they would sing traditional songs. They would eat traditional Ukrainian food. Everyone knows pierogies or vareniki, Ukrainian cabbage rolls, Ukrainian borscht. Eat delicious foods. Be very proud of their Ukrainian flag. Yesterday was the National Flag Day of Ukraine. Waving their beautiful blue and yellow flags and wearing Ukrainian embroidered shirts. And many of those same things we'll be doing exactly like that today, because we know that we can't be deterred, and we know we have to keep up a positive mentality to keep on moving forward.
What are you hearing from people in your home country about the mood there today, and how this is being marked today?
Yeah, there's a little bit of fear, knowing that there's always the possibility of rocket attacks from Russia, especially on this day where a country that's waged war against Ukraine is frustrated. They haven't been able to make any meaningful gains. Many people are in the capital city of Kyiv. There was, of course, as we know, in the first few days of war, the Russian leadership said that they would take Kyiv in 3 days, and here we are 180 plus days later, and still hasn't happened. But there are Russian tanks on the streets of Kyiv, but the ones that have been destroyed by the Ukrainian military. So it's a day of reflection. It's a day of some celebration, obviously not full celebration, because there's still much more work to be done and many people still under occupation. So there's this balance of being proud of the country that we have and that is defending democracy every single day, and also the understanding that there is still much more work to be done, and this isn't over by any stretch of the imagination.
Cassian Soltykevich with me, National Secretary, Ukrainian Canadian Congress. You're here in Ottawa, right?
That's correct,
Cassian, yeah. What's happening here to mark the occasion?
So this evening at 7:30 on Parliament Hill, we are having a rally with many members of the Ukrainian community, but also other communities who have been very supportive of Ukraine. Includes ambassadors and other dignitaries from embassies who have been incredible supporters of Ukraine, especially the people of Poland. Poland has done an incredible job. The Baltic states, Romania, Moldova, and really all of our European partners, and we know Canadians as well. I know it's a little bit far for us, thousands of kilometers away, but we really want to show our support and thank those people and those countries and their citizens who have done so much and continue to do so much for those who were fleeing war. So this evening at 7:30 on Parliament Hill. There will also be on Sunday at Lansdowne Park. There will also be in partnership with the Capital Ukrainian Festival, is having events there as well from 9:30 until 3. And also we're having a community picnic on Sunday afternoon for those who have arrived from Ukraine to welcome them and have an opportunity for them to meet one another, because many people arrive here without any friends or family, and gives them an opportunity to meet one another. I should also say that yesterday morning we had a flag raising at City Hall. Thank you to the Deputy Mayor Laura Dudas for being there and having the Ukrainian flag continue to fly over City Hall. I know it's been there since February, but we did have a re-raising of the flag yesterday.
Okay. How would you describe the Canadian government's handling of the Ukraine file? This is 6 months of war in Ukraine now. So maybe you can speak to, say, the military response, financial aid to Ukraine, and give me your assessment, your honest assessment of the resettlement efforts here with so many Ukrainians resettling here in Canada.
yes, there are tens of thousands of Ukrainians who arrived here in Canada on all three parts. On the settlement piece, it's quite weak. We continue to have frustrations and difficulty having settlement agencies getting the funding they need and the support they need to help those people who are arriving here. I have to remember these people are not arriving with refugee status. They are arriving on a unique visa. There's very little financial support for them, so there continues to be difficulties with those arriving here in Canada and helping them find jobs, helping them find housing, all these components. In terms of the financial support to Ukraine, the economic support, Canada has been a great partner on the foreign ministry file in that regard, working with our U.S. ally, the United States, with our European allies, the Five Eyes, and the other NATO allies in terms of providing economic support to Ukraine, which is very important because we don't want them to default on any debt that they have, which has been very good. On the military side, we've done a lot in the last few months, but there needs to be more there's still more to be done. There's a lot more that Canada can do. I know that our supplies here are limited in terms of Canada, what's on the ground, but of course we can purchase equipment and send it to Ukraine from other nations and other allies. So there's still more to be done on all those fronts, but especially on the settlement front and especially on the military side, because we know that this is not a war this is a war that has to be won militarily, unfortunately, but that's the way it has to happen and continues to happen. So supporting that Ukrainian military with the equipment they need, with the President Zelensky of Ukraine is requesting, that's what's really going to be able to help Ukraine and to have them win and push the front line back to the borders that they need them to be at.
What do you say to people, because this is an opinion, I'm not saying I have it, but people do have it, who wonder what the end game is here, how long is this going to last, and surely if there's going to be some kind of ceasefire or peace talks, it will have to involve Ukraine admitting that there are regions of the country that will be lost. Donetsk, Luhansk, and move on. Admit that those will be Russian-occupied territories, and let's get on with having peace. What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's the wrong mentality to have, and I think that many Western nations are realizing that this is an opportunity to win once and for all in this century against Russia and their dictatorship and their totalitarian regime. Ukraine has fought back, has destroyed much of their military, and this is a chance for, if we keep on supporting Ukraine militarily and economically and every aspect, they will win. We know that it's not easy to win a war in weeks and months. We know it'll take some time. We know that we've seen incredibly strategic moves militarily by the Ukrainian military, destroying ammunition depots and destroying those key targets that they need to destroy with the limited equipment they have right now, while they wait for more equipment to come from the West and from NATO allies. So we know that it'll happen, and we know that Ukraine can win back, and we know that the faster that we're able to support them, the faster we're able to train Ukrainian soldiers, as we know that Canada has also sent soldiers to train Ukrainian soldiers in Great Britain as part of a UK-led mission. All of these pieces allow us to finally be able to push back and go, you know what, enough is enough. We've had, not only Russia has invaded Ukraine, but Russia has pushed into Georgia, has pushed into Moldova, and we know that on the online disinformation front has done a terrible job to democracies and to freedom-based countries around the world and rules-based countries around the world. So we know this is not only Ukraine fighting for this, but this is an opportunity for the whole world to be able to finally go, enough is enough. Ukraine is fighting for all of us militarily, and we can provide them the equipment that they need to be able to defeat this enemy so that all of us can live in a more peaceful and democratic world altogether.
Thank you for your time this morning. All the best.
Absolutely.
Yep, bye-bye. Cassian Soltykevich, National Secretary, Ukrainian Canadian Congress. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 24th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 19 degrees, in Smiths Falls, 21. And here's what's making news this hour. That thick fog you had to navigate in places this morning did affect the professional golfers who were gathered at the Hunt Club this morning. It is the day before round one of the CP Women's Open, so that means it's Pro-Am Day. Local favorite Brooke Henderson's tee time, for example, moved ahead to 11:30 this morning in that fundraising portion of the tournament. Brooke is one of 18 Canadians in this field, including 12-year-old Lucy Lynn of Vancouver, the youngest ever in a Canadian pro golf event. 156 golfers will tee off tomorrow in round one. A little extra cash for CATSA workers, bonuses of $200 a week at security checkpoints, but that has led to some problems. Apparently you have to work to get the bonus, so some are showing up for work sick in order to qualify. A new survey shows more and more of us are concerned about inflation. 2/3 surveyed recently by Polara are worried inflation will continue for at least another year. To make matters worse, only 1 in 6 say their wage has kept up. Almost 3/4 of those asked say they're cutting back on spending to try and stretch the paycheck. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. And joining us today, Ashton Arsenault, Vice President, Crestview Strategy. Morning, Ashton.
Morning, Rob.
Yeah, great to hear from you. And Karl Belanger is the president of Traxxion Strategies. Good morning, Karl.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's good to hear from Karl, too. Ashton, weren't you just in PEI? You were just in PEI not that long ago?
Oh, you're keeping tabs on me, Rob. Indeed, I was.
No. I'm just back from PEI. I was there for Old Home Week, so... I'm from there originally, and it's always good to get out home. Okay. Because you had warned me, you said, Rob, bring your steaks with you. And it's so funny.
That's right.
Because we were in the grocery store in Cornwall, Prince Edward Island, which is just outside of Charlottetown, and we're not in there 5 minutes, and there's an argument, and there are tourists in there from away. And they're complaining about the price of hot dogs. The price of hot dogs, too expensive in Prince Edward Island. So, inflation running a little hot. They regulate the price of gas, by the way, in PEI. Was the most expensive gas. It was like $1.80. So, I don't know. We're regulating the price of gas as some kind of cure-all for the price of gas. I got gas for $1.49.9 this morning here in Ottawa. So, I don't know what this regulating the price of gas is all about. All right. Let's jump into federal politics. Conservative leadership race, frontrunner Pierre Poilievre is facing criticism after an image of him shaking hands with this fellow Jeremy McKenzie, founder of a group known as Diagolon, far-right group, was posted on social media, and there have been many news stories about it. Poilievre has been asked to denounce Jeremy McKenzie and his organization and the organization's views, not really forthcoming in doing that. Ashton, what do you think about how the Poilievre campaign is handling this controversy?
Well, I think they've handled it well, Rob, but let me paint a little picture here just for the sake of narrative. So, bearded baseball cap, Halifax male, number 3,412, let's say, walks into a public event, and the campaign, we gather, is supposed to know who he is. So I'm not sure if you folks have been to a Poilievre event before, but there are literally thousands of people there, and of course Pierre is quite generous with his time. What actually concerns me here is the individual in question quite literally put out a video mocking the media for doing exactly what he had hoped as a result of this stunt. So he's, the media is actually giving him what he wants here, which is a platform. So in my opinion, look, some commentators are keen to lecture the campaign daily about the need to not platform extremist views. But now they've made an extremist and his organization, frankly, media stars for the sole reason of trying to criticize the campaign. So, frankly, I'll be blunt, I think this is a cheap story. And first and foremost, I think the campaign was correct to denounce the fringe views of this group as forcefully as they did.
All right. What do you think, Karl, about how all this is playing out and how the Poilievre campaign is handling it?
Well, I will agree partly with Ashton in as much as, politicians walk into a crowd, take pictures with all kinds of people. They're not expected to know every single one of them. That's totally fair, and that's the reality of politics. And most politicians at one point or another were caught with somebody that did not have a stellar reputation, let's just say. The problem with McKenzie and the Diagolon group is the fact that the Poilievre campaign, since the beginning, have been courting these votes, have been courting these extreme views. They've been attracting them. That's why they're showing up. That's why they were there during the Freedom Convoy. That's the problem. And that's why the campaign has trouble to shake this off, because it's not a one-off. It is the kind of people that Poilievre has hung around with. He showed up to their events, he's cheered on, he's taken on their language and their slogans, and he's cheered them on. That's the fundamental problem for Poilievre, because people see this and he's like, of course, he's associating with these type of people, so of course they're showing up. That's the bigger problem for Poilievre. It's not the single picture, of a guy showing up randomly at one event. It's the fact that it is part of the campaign strategy of the Poilievre camp to talk to this crowd. And the People's Party crowd and other extreme elements of our society, and Poilievre has attracted them because of his slogan about freedom and what have you. That's the problem.
Okay. What about that, Ashton?
I disagree because, frankly, using Karl's logic, anybody that, and I'll just use one example, has an issue with a mask mandate or forced vaccinations is automatically labeled an extreme. I think that's an awfully dangerous path to go down. However, I will agree with Karl notionally in that, some of these events do attract extreme voices. And I think to Pierre's credit, every time it's been pointed out or every time that, an individual has been identified that frankly has abhorrent views, the campaign's been quick to denounce them, which is exactly what happened in the case of this Diagolon snafu.
Okay. All right. Let's move along from that, but also stick with the Poilievre file. He commands a lot of attention these days. Political scientist Kevin O'Leary, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary from Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, God knows a dozen other things. Look, he says Poilievre can't beat Trudeau. Poilievre is, he's too divisive, he's too toxic. Radical was one of the words he used, too radical. Only Charest can lead the Conservatives to victory. Charest will win over disappointed Liberals. Charest will win big in Quebec. Charest could win a majority government for the Conservatives. What do you think of Kevin O'Leary's analysis, Ashton?
Yeah, look, on Charest, I'm trying not to make jokes here. On Charest, two things.
All right.
Members of the Conservative Party clearly disagree, which is why the party is literally more than twice the size it was before the race began, largely because of Poilievre. And second, Kevin O'Leary is probably better off as a mediocre wine salesman than a political candidate or political compass. We all saw that unfold in real time. Mr. Wonderful, of course, has his own opinions, and he's entitled to those. Mm-hmm. He can't have his own facts.
Right. It's just he's not the only one who thinks that, right? This is kind of the narrative of the entire Charest campaign, I guess. So it's O'Leary's just
grasping at straws.
Is that what it is, though? Is he really grasping at straws, or?
It's my opinion, yeah. And, I think what we're hearing is the final saber rattling of a campaign that has been out-fundraised, out-worked, and out-supported. And it's unfortunate that, Mr. Charest continues to paint a picture of Pierre being an extremist, or Pierre not being able to rally the party behind him, or Pierre not being able to perform well in the general election, where literally every other single standard measure that we use to benchmark success of campaigns tells a different story.
Okay. What do you think about Kevin O'Leary's analysis of the Conservative Party leadership race? This is where we are. 17 days to go. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, since day one, I've said that Jean Charest would have an easier time defeating Justin Trudeau than he would to win the Conservative leadership, and I think that's still true.
Okay.
Now, I don't know that only Charest can beat Trudeau. I don't believe that. I think there's a path for Poilievre to beat Trudeau as well, but I think Charest would have an easier path, if not for the little bump in the road that is winning the Conservative leadership, which doesn't appear to be happening by all the measures that Ashton just mentioned. The party that Jean Charest is trying to lead has very little to do with the party he used to lead federally, when it was called the Progressive Conservatives. It is not the same beast. The marriage between the Reform Party and the Progressive Conservatives happened a long time ago, and slowly but surely, the Progressive Conservatives have disappeared. They're a smaller number, and the Reform wing has grown and attracted more people and taken over. And that's why Charest is struggling, because I think he's right. I think his campaign is right, that he would have an easier time defeating Trudeau for many reasons, including the fact that he's a native son of Quebec, so he has a bigger upside than Poilievre here in a province where we have 75, 78 seats. But the current Conservatives don't like what Charest used to represent when he was a federal leader. In fact, that's why the Reform Party was created in the first place. And they certainly don't like the fact that he was a Liberal premier in Quebec. So it's two big strikes against him, and it's been hard. I know they say that they've signed up members and this and that, but they're trailing. So now it's a get out the vote operation, and hoping that the weird formula that the Conservative Party has, weighted by writing, will give him a path to win and defeat Poilievre.
All right. Do you expect Poilievre? Let's work from the assumption he's going to win this thing. There is this expectation he's going to pivot. He's going to become, fuzzy and cuddly Pierre Poilievre, and pivot to the middle and become more moderate. I question whether he even should do that, because what he's doing now seems to be working. And, I don't know, but I'd like your opinion, Ashton. What do you think, Ashton? This idea that after he wins, he'll pivot and move to the center and become a moderate Pierre Poilievre. What do you think about that happening?
Probably my favorite contemporary political topic, Rob. Because it worked so well, right, for the last two federal Conservative leaders, when they completely turn their backs on the membership who elected them to put forward a different set of ideas and overall a different vision entirely than why they were elected in the first place. I'll answer this very simply and very quickly. Pierre is going to be Pierre, and if you're expecting a dramatic change between now and when the federal writs are dropped, you will be waiting for a long time.
Okay. On that, Karl, what do you think?
Well, I've known Pierre Poilievre for something like 20 years. I've never seen a fuzzy, cuddly Pierre Poilievre. That person doesn't exist. So somehow, I don't think that person will show up. I think he will double down on his rhetoric because that's who he is. And you know, Ashton is right that certainly in the case of O'Toole and perhaps Scheer to a certain extent, they did try to moderate and present a different view, a different vision to the Canadian people to attract the centrist voters, the red-blue switch voters, and it didn't work. But it didn't work. I think it didn't work because people didn't believe them. And I think that if Poilievre were to attempt that, people would not believe him either.
Yeah.
So I don't think he will.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm totally on board with both of your analysis. When we come back, let's turn our attention to Quebec politics. So interesting with the campaign set to start on Sunday. It's your political fix. Rob Snow Show, City News.
It really is a tremendous source of excitement and joy for the theatre staff and I to welcome artists finally back to the theatres. It was a tremendous pleasure to sit on the selection committee. We really have something to cater to all musical tastes, from trippy art pop to straight ahead rock and roll to soul and funk. But it's huge for us to be able to welcome local artists back into the theatres to showcase their amazing talents for people here.
Up to the top is where I'm headed and I'm going.
You know what? I've checked out some of the stuff already before doing this. I've been hyped and ready to do this because it's definitely being done on a major level. And, you know, I'm here seeing it in person right now and I'm like, wow, you know, this is what it is, man. I'm happy to be here.
This kind of concert series promotes music and gives us newcomers or even like new bands a big chance to showcase their talents and share their music with the world.
It's amazing that OMIC has organized this and given an opportunity for artists to perform, but also be part of something that I wouldn't be able to create this just on my own. So everybody's talents comes together to create something great.
It says a lot about the city that they are engaging the processes that get those musicians out and get them in front of people, and the music is getting heard. So we don't have a thing where like everybody's the best kept secret, right? We're sort of breaking through that wall a lot, and which is exactly what we need.
Well, first of all, I'm really grateful for this opportunity. For me, it's a little bit like being officially part of the local artist community in Ottawa. And it's like my first real big show where I'm gonna be performing my own songs, so it's really exciting.
What the hell's going on? Why you still holding on?
You know, it's a great opportunity for us artists to be able to really get a reach to an audience and a good quality audience too. I'm just happy that I can be involved. I'm happy that I can add value. It's top tier for sure.
It really is like a dream come true, especially having so many restrictions in the last couple of years, not being able to jam because we couldn't get together, and then to be able to do it in a beautiful venue like this with the seats in the background and just the whole entourage of it, and really feeling like we're able to put on a real show for the first time in a long time. It's just fantastic. It really is great.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
We're back with part two of your political fix. Ashton, Arsenault with me, Vice President of Crestview Strategies. Karl Belanger as well, President at Traxxion Strategies. Quebec election campaign begins on Sunday. I was looking at some polling this morning, 338, Canada. The CAQ, Legault's CAQ, on track to capture 42% of the vote, easily enough to win another majority government, 97-seat majority government. As the Quebec Liberal Party on track to win just 18 seats. The PQ, right now, seat tracker, 1 seat. I mean, the Parti Québécois could be wiped out. This upstart Quebec Conservative Party, 13%, but not winning any seats. So, Karl, this is really your bailiwick here. How do you explain Legault's appeal here?
There's a couple of things. First of all, during the pandemic, the CAQ government and Legault adopted a very effective communication strategy when it came to talking about the pandemic and the management of the pandemic. In fact, it was so effective that despite the fact that Quebec has the worst record in terms of number of deaths from COVID, Legault's approval remained among the highest in the country, if not the highest, for a long time. So they were very successful that way. The second reason is that Legault is facing not one, not two, not three, but 4 opposition parties. And so, Legault is hovering at 40-something, and everybody else is under 20. So that's kind of an easy situation for him. The other parties simply are not able to become the one alternative to Legault to create some kind of a two-way race. Everybody's getting their own little demographics supporting them, which is not enough for them to become the alternative for a majority of the people of Quebec.
Okay. What do you think is happening, Ashton?
Yeah, well,
it's fascinating to watch.
The Liberal Party, I would have to say that you've got Legault. This guy, what a political powerhouse. He's an exceptional communicator. Obviously, Karl spoke to that. I think what he doesn't get a lot of credit for that I'll raise is that, I don't know how to properly say this, but he is almost effortlessly nationalist, and he does that without raising any red flags or alarm bells in federal circles. And I think that is a unique skill that he has. And from an outsider perspective, I'm just going to be honest with you. This guy comes across as more Quebecois than maple syrup. So to me, I can certainly see, while I'm not from Quebec, I don't live in the province, I can certainly see why he is popular. And you go back multiple years now, Legault is, leading polling whenever they do quarterly check-ins on how premiers are performing. This guy's always been at the top of the list, and I think usually along with John Horgan. So I think it's going to take an absolutely massive screw-up that I don't foresee happening to knock him off this perch, and I think you can expect another 4 years of Legault.
Oh, yeah, that would appear inevitable to me. What has happened to all of that support for the PQ? Where's that? Has it just all migrated to the CAQ, Karl?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
There's also, a bulk of the support. And I think it's interesting what Ashton says, that Legault is effortlessly nationalist, which is what most Quebecers are, I think. Right. I think most Quebecers are nationalists, but they're not separatists. And when there was only those two alternatives, separatists and federalists, then they were attracted to the most nationalist of them all. But now they found a party that was nationalist and sometimes more extreme on language or on religious symbols than the PQ. And they've attracted a bunch of the vote. But they've also lost votes to the left-wing Quebec Solidaire, which is also a separatist party, but is to the left of the PQ. So the old radical leftist separatists, remember Gilles Duceppe used to be a Maoist, right? Those guys find a home with the Quebec Solidaire that is also talking to a new generation which has no interest in the fight of the past. So even though Quebec Solidaire is separatist, all the new voters, all the younger voters, and if you look at the demographics amongst young people, the PQ is nowhere. But Quebec Solidaire, especially in Montreal and to a certain extent in Quebec City and Sherbrooke, are attracting the university students that are kind of hovering on the left side of the spectrum.
Okay. What's your impression of this Eric Duhaime? And is he setting up some kind of conservative outpost here for the Conservatives in Quebec? Give me your sense of what's happening. I mean, 13%, it's not great, but it's not bad either. What do you think, Karl?
Duhaime is, if you look at his platform and his discourse, in many aspects, he is closer to Maxime Bernier's People's Party than to the federal Conservatives. That said, he did work on the Hill at some point for Stockwell Day at the time of the Canadian Alliance. He has links with that party. But the key thing is that Poilievre was able to rise to ride that wave of discontents toward Legault that is, more prominent on the right-wing side of things, and especially concentrated in the Quebec City area, to be on the starting line during this election at 13%, and an invitation to some of the TV debates. That's goal for a new party, because the Conservative Party, has been around for 2 or 3 elections now, never gathered more than 1% of support. So he's a bit of a thorn in the side of the CAQ, because there is growth potential there, which is why you've seen some CAQ ministers over the past few weeks come out and swing against Duhaime and some of the extreme views that some of his candidates have when it relates to the pandemic or guns or whatever other topic that they may express. The problem with a new party, of course, you don't have the infrastructure to vet those candidates the way an established party would. So you got a lot of kind of a fringe candidates that have made it through because you were trying to recruit and fill the slate.
Okay. On paper, the Prime Minister would be the most powerful politician in the country, but I don't know. Ashton, I kind of think Legault is the most powerful politician in the country. What do you think?
Certainly nobody's more powerful than the Prime Minister. I think we could get into a long-winded debate about that, but I would say that I don't think there is an electorate that a leader responds to where a leader has more control over that electorate than Legault, nor a leader that represents the general will of an electorate quite as effectively as Legault does. Yeah. So I'm trying to be very careful with my language there. Obviously, he's a very powerful politician. He represents Quebec.
My gosh, he has the Federalists just cowering in Ottawa. Nobody is saying anything about him. It's incredible.
I agree with you, Rob.
Quite something to watch. Yeah. Okay, we'll see what happens. Thank you to the both of you. That's going to be a really fascinating provincial election campaign, just for the messages that we hear. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Rob.
Yeah, bye. Ashton Arsenault, Vice President, Crestview Strategy. Karl Belanger, President, Traxxion Strategies. When we come back, Talkback Hour right after the news, 750-1310, and this is City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 24th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 19 degrees, 21 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Canadians are worried inflation might not have peaked and their wages are not going to be able to keep up with rising costs. Here's City News business editor Chris McCusker.
The Polaris Strategic Insight Survey shows 2/3 of Canadians think inflation will continue to rise for at least another year, and respondents blame the higher costs on a slew of issues like COVID-19, supply chain problems, the federal government, the invasion of Ukraine, and the Bank of Canada, and only 1 in 6 say their salaries are keeping up. Now, it's still not clear if inflation has peaked in Canada. The reading in July was 7.6%. The poll shows that 67% think it will increase over the next few months. And the poll also shows that 73% of respondents are cutting back on spending in order to offset the higher costs. At the City News Business Center, I'm Chris McCusker.
City News time, 10:02, and now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Sun and cloud for the most part today, just a slight chance of a shower. The high 29 degrees will feel a lot warmer with the humidity. Some showers this evening, then we'll clear overnight, 16 for the low, and tomorrow sun and cloud 24. For today, the high 29.
And right now, 19 degrees in Ottawa, 21 in Smiths Falls. Senators and MPs will learn a little bit more about the Prime Minister's historic nomination to the Supreme Court of Canada during a question and answer session today. Michelle O'Bosawin will be speaking at a parliamentary committee. It's her first public appearance since being nominated and is poised to become the first Indigenous justice on our country's highest court. She is fluently bilingual, a Franco-Ontarian, and also a member of the Odanak First Nation. Ukraine's ambassador to Canada will mark Ukraine's Independence Day today. Yulia Kovalev is not in the city today. She is instead in Toronto opening an immersive multimedia exhibition. Ukraine is celebrating its independence from Russia, or the Soviet Union to be more accurate, 31 years ago, but is also marking today, which is 6 months since the start of the Russian invasion. That 6-month mark of that Russian attack, Ukraine is preparing for another onslaught today, but more help is now on the way to that country from the United States.
President Biden announcing Wednesday the U.S. will send its largest package of security assistance to date to Ukraine, approximately $2.98 billion of weapons and equipment. The president in a statement says this will allow Ukraine to acquire air defense systems, artillery systems and munitions, counter unmanned aerial systems, and radars to ensure it can continue to defend itself over the long term. Wednesday is Ukraine's Independence Day, and President Biden says it's bittersweet, with thousands killed or wounded and millions displaced from their homes by the Russian invasion. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
And the inquiry into the 2020 Nova Scotia mass shooting will hear from the RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki for a second day today. Lucki testified yesterday the force must improve its communications internally and also with the public. She says the province's RCMP was too slow and vague in releasing details about the gunman's 13-hour rampage, which claimed 22 lives. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Why, oh why, are there so many job openings? Almost 900,000. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. 900,000 job openings in Canada. As well as a few more questions for you this morning. Have you recently left a job? Quit a job. Take this job and shove it. Or do you know someone who has left a job, who told their boss, hey, boss, take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Why did you leave that job? Or that person you know who left their job. Why did they leave their job? Did you get another job yet? What are you looking for in a new job? Are you still looking for a new job? And if you're trying to hire someone, what's that like these days? Are you finding it hard to hire workers? And if so, what are you doing about it to try and attract someone to your place of employment? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I'd love to hear from you this morning. Why are there so many job openings? Why are there so many job openings? As I say, almost 900,000 job openings in Canada. Any idea? Any idea? What do you think is going on? Everywhere I look, from one end of this city to the other, I see help wanted signs. Just back from vacation, as I said, in PEI last week. Drove through, 3 provinces. Made more than a few stops along the way. And everywhere I went, every street corner, every business, there seemed to be signs, we're hiring. Join our team. We'll train you. No experience necessary. So, what's happening? What's happening? I don't know. I have no idea. I have some ideas, but I don't know if they're true or not. There are probably lots of things that would go into explaining it, and there are really no wrong answers. But if you have any ideas about what is happening with this job market, I'd love to hear them this morning. Why are there so many job openings? Let's start there and see where the conversation goes today. It's the Talkback Hour. I'd rather hear from you than talk in this hour. The phone lines are all yours. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Why are there so many job openings? And then I kind of have these follow-up questions I'd like to ask you. That's just kind of the conversation starter. Why are there so many job openings? Have you recently left a job? Or someone a son, daughter, whatever the case might be? Why did you leave your job? Why did they leave their job? Have you found another job yet? A better job? Are you still looking for another job? What are you looking for in a new job? And on the flip side, if you're someone who is trying to hire someone, what is that like these days? I've heard it's very difficult. Very tough to find workers. And if that's the case, what are you doing about it? Are you increasing pay? Are you letting people work from home? Can you let people work from home? Just what is it like to try and get people on the payroll these days? I'm just curious. Because in all my years, I don't think I've seen anything quite like this job market. It's kind of crazy. We have record low unemployment. We have all these job openings, jobs just there for the taking, and a lot of people just don't want to take them. Why? Any ideas? If you do, I'd love to hear from you. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Mitch in Ottawa. Good morning, Mitch.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hey, Mitch, why are there so many job openings, Mitch?
Well, like you said, a lot of people, all they want is the big salaries.
Okay. Nothing wrong with wanting a big salary, though.
No, but you get the big salary with the experience, and somebody with no experience don't get the big salary.
Okay. You think people who are just, young people starting out, their expectations are too high? Is that what you're saying, Mitch? Or?
Yeah, well,
okay.
There are a lot of new people on working. They expect to have you got to climb the ladder. You can't expect to get the big salary right off the bat unless you have you're special in something, or a doctor or something like that.
Right. Okay. What's your experience right now with the job market, Mitch? Have you switched jobs, or have you switched jobs or anything, Mitch? Or
yes, I switched job in June.
Oh, in June. Okay. Why? I'm curious. Why?
I got a full-time job, not a contract job.
Okay.
And it is a higher salary.
Oh, good for you. So you got a better job.
Well, not a better job. It's just that I'm gone all week now because I went back into trucking.
Oh, okay.
And the other job I had was a 7 to 3 job, Monday to Friday.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But
I went from a desk job to back to trucking.
Back to trucking. Okay. And why did you do that?
My family needed it.
Your family needed
My
it.
wife
Okay.
got sick and couldn't work anymore, so
I see. Okay.
I had to step up to the plate and take care of my family.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay. Very interesting, Mitch. Look, I thank you for your call. All the best to you and your family. Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Thank you, Mitch.
See you
Yeah.
all the time.
Appreciate that very much, Mitch. 750-1310, 750-1310. Jobs, 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 and the work and life is the topic today. Why are there so many job openings? Let's ask Wayne in Ottawa. Good morning, Wayne. You're on City News.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, Wayne. Why are there so many job openings, Wayne?
I think there's so many jobs available because there's a big generation gap right now, I think. And I think that young workforce that we relied upon, and they just don't want to work, I don't think.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything negative about them. I just think it's not the right time.
What do you mean not the right time? What do you mean by that?
Well, either they're in school or they're in college or they're in university or they've found something that they can do online and make the same money that they need as opposed to going into an associate level like store or shop or restaurant or bar.
Right. Okay. Are you speaking from experience, Wayne? Are you one of those young people? Or?
I've been a chef my whole life.
Chef. Okay.
And I've recently transitioned out of kitchen. And it took me 3 jobs to kind of figure out where I am today.
Really? Okay. So you were a chef. You were a chef. It's funny because, you see so many television shows, people want to become chefs.
Yeah, well,
right?
The television.
All I ever wanted to
reality.
do was cook, and now I found my passion, and I'm in the kitchen.
But that's not the reality, John. What you see on TV and what actually happens in a kitchen is not how it looks.
Right. Well, I mean, there have been some high-profile incidents here in Ottawa about toxic work environments and these sorts of things. But
it's not about the toxic work environment. It's about you need to start at the bottom.
At the bottom, yeah.
I've done a lot of interviewing. I've done a lot of hiring. I've done some teaching, and it's a whole bunch of different things where the instant gratification is not there for them, and it's like it almost diminishes what they're trying to do.
So I don't want to get too personal, but you were a chef. What do you do now?
I'm in sales now.
In sales? Wow.
I'm still in the food business, but I'm in sales now, and it's
okay.
But I'm
and you
45.
like it?
I'm 45 now, and I have a very active family, and it works for my family.
Good. Do you enjoy it? Is it as fulfilling for you as being a chef? Or?
There's different aspects that are fulfilling.
Okay.
Do I miss being on the cooking line and cooking for 200-300 people a night? I don't know. I don't know if my body could handle that kind of stress now.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Hey, Wayne, thank you so much, Wayne. Great to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the best. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people changing jobs. Troy in Ottawa. Good morning, Troy. You're on City News.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
It goes. Why are there so many job openings?
Well, I mean, we can't count COVID out of it. I think there's still a lot of people who are fearful of the jobs that are very open in the public, a lot of serving jobs. I think people are still really fearful. I still am trying to figure out how there can be 1 million jobs out there, and yet everyone seems to be working. There's the lowest unemployment rates in Canada at the same time.
Yeah.
I know I just changed jobs. I work in the homeless sector and at one of Ottawa South's injection sites for the last 5 years. And I just recently quit and back in a totally different field now as a superintendent in a building. And there's openings everywhere. Like you said, if there's ever a time to switch careers and find something more like you're saying, do you find anything in your job? I do. I'm getting a lot out of my job. I'm still helping people, but I'm not in danger as much as I was.
Right.
And so for me, there's only one job that you start at the top of it, in a hole, and I think, like someone just said, that instant gratification of wanting top dollar, top pay right away. I want to be at the top, you know. Like, I've got 5 children. 3 of them are in the workforce right now. 1 works in the government, and 2 are new into the workforce, just teenagers, 16 and 18, and they're both going into serving and hostess because there's, like, big restaurants are looking for people, and they're paying good money. So now's the time to find the job of your dreams, because everybody's hiring, like you said.
You should write commercials. Now's the time to find the job of your dreams.
Seriously, like, it's time to do it. So I'm encouraging my kids to don't settle. Right now is the time. Okay. You know, you can get the job of your dreams if you just look around. So that's what I'm doing.
Let me ask you.
I finally found something that I really like, and I'm working from home. You know.
So you were in kind of the social welfare industry, I guess, if you will. You're working at a supervised injection site here in Ottawa. We have 4 of them, right? And now you're the superintendent of a building, like an apartment building, or
brand new complex building, and also it's part of a smaller, older area.
So between the time you left and the time you started your new job, how much time was that? How much time did you not have a job?
I didn't. Well, I was off to have some surgery, so I took the month of July off.
Yeah.
I already had the new job, and when I came back from the surgery, blam! I started the new job in August. There was no break in the at all. And
so what do you do? What do you do as a superintendent?
When I moved, and I asked the guy, "Hey, you're looking for somebody?" And they hired me, interviewed the whole bit, and I have a background in construction, so it paid off.
So what do you do there? As a superintendent of a building, what do you do?
Yeah, changing lights, getting apartments ready when someone moves out, getting them ready for move-ins, calling all the. It's more or less organizing contractors.
Okay.
In the long run, and then when the new building's open, it's making sure the building runs. It's brand new, so there'll be lots of complaints from tenants about this isn't working, that isn't working, And you're working from home. It's a great job, and there's lots of stuff. I mean, you're looking around Ottawa, you can't look in any direction and not see a crane, right?
Yeah,
the only way to build in Ottawa now is up. There's no more building out. Unless you're Minto or buying huge up farms, the only way to build up is to get people to move is up.
Interesting. Okay, I can change a light bulb. Maybe I could do your job. I couldn't do much more than that, but all right, Troy. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Jobs, changing jobs, quitting jobs, getting better jobs. We're talking about the workforce today. Rob Snow Show, City News.
You've been busy. You've now written your 10th book. Let's talk about the latest book and the idea behind it, Amanda.
Thanks. So it's called Chair Exercises for Fall Prevention. I've written 6 exercise guides now, 4 of them specifically designed for seniors and adults who maybe want to work on their balance and fall prevention. All of the exercises in this book are done sitting in a chair so that you can work your balance, your posture, strength and flexibility without having to stand up and move around.
Yeah, and fall's very important in that demographic that you specifically work with, Amanda. Let's talk about falls and injury prevention and why it's so incredibly important.
So falls are the leading cause of injury for older adults, and 20 to 30% of them have 1 or more falls every year. We know that they cause 85% of seniors injury-related hospitalizations. So, the challenge is once you've fallen once, you're more likely to fall again. And one of the reasons is that in addition to injuring yourself and maybe losing some muscle strength when you're injured and recovering, it also impacts people's confidence about getting up and moving around. Certain health conditions that we're into as we get older, like arthritis, stroke, multiple sclerosis, or Parkinson's, impact our balance too. So we need to, keep moving, keep using our muscles, keep building strength, but in a safe way so that, we can make sure enjoying our golden years.
Well, and a good example is the work that you do with your parents. Each and every week you go through exercises with your parents, and you were telling me off screen that, your dad was actually on the show with us quite a few years ago. And now he's doing those chair exercises, and you've received feedback, or he has in particular from his doctor, said, that's just as important as doing some of those other mobility exercises, right?
Absolutely. And, sometimes his back is bothering him, or some joints might be impacting how comfortable he is standing for a long period of time. So, he said he prefers for most of the time when we're doing the exercises over video to do chair exercises. So I had created, a chair exercise workout that I'm doing with my parents every week. And it's helping tremendously. So that's where I got the idea to do this book. I thought, there aren't a lot of chair exercise books out there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of great chair yoga books, but not everybody wants to do yoga. So I wanted to just focus specifically on strength exercises that you can do while seated.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Why are there so many job openings? 900,000 job openings nationwide. Have you recently left a job? Know someone who's left a job? Got a new job? Why'd you leave your old job? Still looking for a job? If you're someone who's trying to hire someone to do a job, what is that like these days? Are you finding it as hard as it has been reported to actually find new workers for your company, your organization, whatever the case might be? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. In Almont, Angelo. Morning, Angelo.
Hey, how are you, Rob?
I'm good, Angelo. Good to hear from you. Why are there so many job openings?
Well, I find that, my generation doesn't really like to stick to a job too long. And since a lot of people are retiring, most of the workforce is younger, and nobody sticks to their jobs like they used to. I went to school, and I went to school with a lot of my friends, and they came out of college looking for jobs, and I got lucky, and I had some good jobs in offices, and I worked in political offices and blah, blah, blah. But during COVID, I got laid off at my last job, and I said, well, I should find a route where it's job security. So I took my truck license course at Crossroads, and I got in with a trucking company, and I stuck to it because a lot of people jump around from job to job. Yeah. And I got promoted to truck foreman, and I've been here ever since, and I love it. And, I went to college. I could be working in an office and whatnot, but I find you make more money in the trades, and a lot of people my generation don't want to work in trades, so I find a lot of the jobs that I see available are construction, trades, and a lot of people aren't going that route anymore. A lot of people do IT, and there's so many jobs in IT that so many people have the credentials, but there's not enough job openings.
So when you say your generation, how old are you?
Me, I'm 25.
Oh, 25. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're young. Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Angelo.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't want to stick with it. Don't want to stick with it. Jump from job to job. Okay. This line here. Rose in Stittsville. Rose.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
A pleasure, Rose. Yeah. Why are there so many job openings?
Well, I have a personal situation, and I'm not sure how many others are like me, but after what happened with the retirement homes during COVID, my elderly mother is just petrified to go into a home, and she's 82 now, and she doesn't have internet at her house. So during COVID, I was, bringing her food, and she's just so scared to leave the house. She just sits at home. And recently she had another episode where she had to be hospitalized, and they wouldn't release her until she either went to a home or came to someone's house where they took care of her, and that would be me.
Right.
So I've been doing this, off and on for the last, since COVID. I told my employer, my mom needs attention, and so he said, okay, so you're going to take a little bit of a medical leave to take care of your mother, and I said, I guess so. And it's just one thing after another, her cataract surgery, and she would have no idea how to take all those drops. She would forget how to take all the different drops. So I've been taking care of her. And this probably happens to a lot of people,
Right.
I mean,
you're taking care of your parents in this case, right? Yeah. So, and that prevents you from working.
Exactly. I wish I could work from home, but I'm in
which wouldn't, according to Statistics Canada, you don't have a job. You'd probably like to work, but you're not looking for a job. Is that a fair, accurate description of what that you'd like to work, but you're not?
I've been looking for a job, but I've been looking for a job where I can still take care of my mother, a part-time job, but my field, I'm in the dental field, so I can't work from home.
Right.
And there was even a gas station up the road. They were hiring someone from 5 in the morning till 10 in the morning, and I would have taken that one.
Oh, okay.
But now my mother's at my house. I don't know how long she's going to be there for.
Right.
It's
so
like
it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So you're one of these people, I don't even think Statistics Canada, even though you don't have a job right now, you wouldn't be considered unemployed under the way Statistics Canada defines unemployment. You wouldn't, because you're not really actively looking for work, because it's so difficult for you to find work that meets your specific definition. But that is very interesting. You know, it's not that you don't want to work, it's just that personal circumstances are preventing you from working. In this case,
I've been in the same, at this place, I've been there for 15 years.
Right.
And I've been in the same field since 1997. And in 1997, I actually was a dental assistant, a waitress, and I worked in a perfume store. So I had 3 jobs, and I saved up money for a house.
Wow, holy smokes. Okay.
And now I just feel like, oh my God, like I have to do something. And it's like constant attention.
Yeah.
From the day goes by. Like
you have a full-time job. It's taking care of your mother, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just not
but I don't know
gig.
how to. I mean, I'm sure I could get something for doing that, but I don't know how to.
Yeah, there may be some stipend for that. I'm not quite sure either, Rose. Thank you.
Yeah,
interesting
you're welcome.
perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Why are there so many job openings? 900,000 job openings across the country. We have 1 million people unemployed and a record low unemployment rate. 750-1310. Back after the news on City News.
The Calgary Stampede is a world-renowned festival celebrating wrangling, bull riding, and everything cowboy. But did you know that many people credit its origins to a Black Canadian? Take a minute to meet John Ware. The word cowboy has racist roots. Before the American Civil War, white ranchers were called cowhands, but the enslaved black men and women working alongside them were actually referred to as cowboys to infantilize and disrespect black ranchers. The legend of cowboy John Ware is full of impressive feats and awe-inspiring skill, including the ability to train even the wildest broncos and easily hold a horse on its back. But the real story of John Ware is one that starts from more humble beginnings. Ware was born into slavery in the United States, gaining his freedom towards the end of the American Civil War in 1865. Ware's skills with cattle ranching developed as he traveled throughout the United States, eventually settling in a town southwest of present-day Calgary, Alberta, which made him one of the first black pioneers in the prairies. Over time, news of Ware and his amazing cowboy skills began to spread, and people came from across North America to witness his horsemanship and skills as a rancher. Eventually, Ware went on to own many of his own ranches. In 1892, he became the first man in Western Canada to earn the title of steer wrestler, and Ware's feats in local contests set the stage for the Calgary Stampede Rodeo we know today. In September of 1905, Ware was killed in a freak accident with his horse, and more than 10,000 mourners from across the region attended his funeral, making it one of the largest in Alberta history. Though his true story is difficult to separate from the legends around him, Ware's status as a respected forefather of cowboy skill continues to be celebrated today. Ware has dedicated monuments across Alberta, including several sites near his first ranch, a Calgary school in his namesake, and a building at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It is Wednesday, August 24th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 22. In Smith Falls, it is 23. And here's what's making news this hour. A thick fog from earlier this morning affected play at the Pro-Am, so Smith Falls local Brooke Henderson's tee-off has now been moved to 11:30. The Pro-Am is part of the fundraising portion of the CP Women Open. Brooke is one of the 18 Canadians in this event, the youngest ever in a Canadian pro event. 12-year-old Luceline from Vancouver is also at the tournament. And some relief at the gas pumps this morning. MPro says the price of gas fell 5 cents overnight to $1.59.9. a litre at most Ottawa stations. We also saw the price on August 6th, but the next day the price jumped 7 cents. Now, before that, the last time we saw gas prices this low was in February. And police say 2 men who were shot in Montreal within 30 minutes of each other have died in hospital. Montreal police say they received a call at about 1 p.m. about a 44-year-old man who was shot at a shopping center in the town of Mont-Royal, a city on the island of Montreal. The man has succumbed to his injuries. And police say they received another call at about 1:30 p.m. of another man who was shot at a restaurant in the southern end of the city. And they say that 50-year-old man has also died in hospital. Police say they are investigating whether the two shootings are related. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Why are there so many job openings? We're talking about jobs today. Work life balance. Have you recently left a job? Or know someone who's left a job? Why did you leave that job? Or why did they leave their job? Get another job yet? Are you still looking? What are you looking for in a job? Or did you land a better job? And if you are someone who is trying to hire someone, what's that like these days? Are you finding it difficult to find workers for your organization, for your company? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Statistics Canada, keeps all kinds of data about the labor market. There's the Labor Force Survey, what we used to call the Unemployment Report. That comes out every month. Keeps track of what kind of money people are making, average hourly earnings. StatsCan also keeps track of what kind of wages employers are offering workers these days when they're looking to hire people. And it keeps track of, job openings, job vacancies. And I have all kinds of stats and figures here, but I don't want to get lost in the numbers. I'd rather hear from you. 750-1310, 750-1310. 613-750-1310. Kevin, good morning. You're on City News. Kevin, why are there so many job openings?
I think the two biggest factors are pent-up demand from the post-pandemic, and then the good job that the Trudeau government did on bailing out businesses and keeping paychecks flowing.
Okay.
Are you there?
What do you mean pent-up demand? What do you mean?
Well, people didn't go out, and so a lot of them saved money, and now they're out shopping.
Right.
And the businesses were kept afloat. Like them or not, you have to give credit. Canada's economy is good. This is a sign of a good economy. We lead the G7 in GDP, and heck, he even bailed out the Rideau Center when the Polyev Freedom Convoy shut it down.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I suppose so. But
and the young people are working. By the way, our summer camp had to shut down 2 weeks, and the lifeguard shortage. So the teenagers that normally did those jobs are working. So they're not. They just have more options.
So
now.
what can be done to fill these jobs? Do you think? We have 900,000 jobs.
You have your attrition, and obviously, the economists would say immigration is that's the solution. Is immigration? If you have low birth rates, that's the only solution.
Yeah, well, I mean, we already have record immigration, though. Right, 400,000 people a year.
To the amount of job openings.
400,000 people a year.
And I'm personally, I'm not a fan of increasing immigration to grow the economy. That's not my bag. But I do think a lot of it is the. Like it or not, the businesses were kept afloat during the pandemic. Some of them shut down. Maybe was that a good idea? Should there have been a bunch of them that just went bankrupt or out of business?
Maybe
then, but an employee-friendly job market to me is a good thing. People have more options. They can negotiate for higher pay.
It's kind of a workers' market right now, for sure.
Yeah,
right.
Certainly we have oversaturation of a lot of different consumer things. How many, do we need every 10 feet a Subway or Tim Hortons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? How many options do we need so the people who open these, they're making enough to stay in business.
Okay, all right.
So I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm more concerned that we dump that Bill 124 and retain our nurses.
Okay, all right, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you,
bye-bye.
Kevin. Yeah, bye. Okay. I read yesterday that Tim Hortons is going to start selling pizza. That they've started selling pizza at some Toronto Tim Hortons. Can you imagine going to Tim Hortons and getting pizza? I'll take a medium double pizza? No. Mark in Mississauga. Mark.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Mark.
Great show.
Thank you so much. Why are there so many job openings, Mark?
Well, I've kind of a different view than some other callers, but it's in two phases, Rob. Professor Lee has made a comment in your show many times that we're seeing a mass exodus from the job market by baby boomers. The people in their 50s, because of COVID, have made a decision. This isn't for me. Want to live a better life, right? They have more. They have not as much runway ahead of them as somebody else, and I'm in that boat as well.
Okay.
And then as well, you have the inundation of every night on the news for 2.5 years or 2 years, COVID, this number of people have died, this number of people are sick. And so what people have done is that the mindset, I would say when you're closer to the end, when you're 50, it's now gone through the entire population. And so along with younger people wanting to have jobs that work for them in their lifestyle, you're also seeing everybody else in the same mindset, whether it's for family, career, whatever they face, they're trying to work it into their lifestyle. It's no longer company first, it's about me. And the younger people have seen what their parents have gone through the years, working, being loyal to a company, doing 25 years, and see what they get at the end. And they've seen that, and they said, that's not for me.
Okay.
And then as well, the whole inundation, I guess I mentioned, through the pandemic on the news and the media, it's changed people's philosophy on work. I think there's been a philosophical change on work, on the idea of work.
Right. Like, what do I want out of life?
Correct. And what I want out of life, and it's come forefront now because of the number of lives have been lost in the pandemic, and for people that have been affected personally with a loss of a loved one in the pandemic, it's really moved them.
Very sharp analysis, Mark. Thank you for your call. Really appreciate it. Okay. Let's take one more here. Luke in Wendover. I have 4 lines available here. 750-1310, 750-1310. Why are there so many job openings? Luke in Wendover. Luke.
Hey, how are you, Rob?
I'm good, Luke. Thank you. Any ideas?
So here's my input on it. It's just the wage of salary compared to the cost of living. The housing, buying a used car, now it's through the roof.
Yeah.
So the low salaries that they have for those places that are hiring, the salary doesn't match our new lifestyle now.
Okay. So you think employers are not paying enough? Is that what you're saying? Or?
It's just now, like, everything costs so much that even minimum wage doesn't even come close. You want to work, let's say, in West End, and you live in the East End.
Yeah.
Well, you're spending about $100 of gas a week.
Yeah, sure. When I was working for minimum wage, it was a long time ago, granted, 30 years ago. I didn't expect to buy a house and drive a car on minimum wage. So
Well, that's just it, and that's what's scaring a lot of people is just they can't afford anything with the minimum wage.
Right.
Like, rent is through the roof.
Yeah.
Like, I live in Wendover, and I'm paying $1,650 a month.
In Wendover.
Not heating up. Yeah.
For what kind of place in Wendover for $1,650 a month?
It's a two bedroom, 1 bathroom.
Oh, 2-bedroom. Okay.
So luckily we're 2 salaries that we can, we can live.
Yeah.
But just off my salary, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
So
that's a lot of money for an apartment in Wendover. Yeah, that's a lot of money for. Is it a newer place, an older place, or?
It's newer.
Newer. Okay.
But but yeah,
Man,
it's still a lot for being. So
I haven't been to Wendover in a long time. I mean, how long a drive is it from Wendover to Ottawa?
About depends
45
on where in Ottawa.
45
but,
minutes?
Yeah, about 35 minutes.
35
40
minutes. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's my input.
Yep. Great stuff, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you very
Wow,
much. Rob.
$1,650 for a 2-bedroom in Wendover. I guess in downtown Ottawa, that'd be a screaming deal. At the end, this is StatsCan data, okay? At the end of the first quarter of this year, so the end of March of this year, there were 890,000 job vacancies in Canada. So I'm rounding up. I'm saying almost 900,000. Okay, just there for the taking. The same period in 2021, first quarter 2021, last year, there were 553,000 job openings. So that's an increase in 1 year of 60% in a year. And if you go back 2 years, and you think that would have been the end of March 2020, right before the lockdown started because of the pandemic, there were 512,000 job openings. So the number of job openings in the last 2 years is up almost 75% since the first lockdowns. Almost 75%. What is going on there? 2 years ago, about 500,000 job openings. Now, almost 900,000. And you drive down any commercial street, it seems, in any Canadian city, help wanted signs all over the place. How do you explain that? Kevin in Ottawa. Kevin.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi, Kevin. What's going on?
Nobody's mentioning demographics. I mean, I look back on my family, and on mom and dad's side, you know, the 5 kids on one side, 6 kids on the other.
Right.
And families just aren't that big anymore.
Okay.
And the boomers are retiring.
Right.
So they should have, I mean, they knew this was coming. So I think, you know, they should have played the immigration card and brought in more skilled talent.
Okay.
They got to clear up the backlog for the people in the medical profession that, you know, they're not recognizing the foreign qualifications, I guess.
Credentials, Credentials, yeah.
But you're right. You know, when you walk through the Retail Center, every third store's got help wanted.
Oh, sure, yeah.
OC Transpo's hurting. Can't get enough.
Yeah, you know, it's funny
drivers.
when I see the buses driving earlier in the morning when I come into work. They don't even have the route number on the front of the bus anymore. It just says we're hiring on the front of the bus.
News on both show.
Yeah. That's right.
So what do you think? Why is this happening?
Why is this happening? Well, I don't know. Maybe you're onto something, right? Maybe it is just supply and demand, right? Well, maybe. I'll give you another stat, though, Kevin. And, you know, are we really giving poverty wages? You know, some people say, well, they're not paying enough. You want to hire somebody? Pay more. StatsCan tracks this stuff. If you take all the different kinds of jobs in all the different kinds of industries that StatsCan keeps track of, and you look at the job openings, StatsCan tracks the hourly wages that employers are offering, enticing workers. Come work for us. Help wanted. Come work for us. When you put all of those different kinds of jobs together and all the different kind of wages that are being offered, it's StatsCan data. Okay. It's an average. Some will be higher, some will be lower. This is the average. It averages out to $24.20 an hour. $24.20 an hour. Now, 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, it was $22.60 an hour. Now it's $22.40 an hour. So it's up about 7% in 2 years. But you do some quick math. Let's work from the assumption most of these jobs are going to be full-time jobs. People work 40 hours a week. You know, $24.20 an hour is $50,000 a year, gross, $50,000 a year, $50,336 a year before tax. Okay, that's an average. Some jobs pay more than others, sure. In the oil and gas industry, it's $34 an hour. In the construction industry, it's $27.50 an hour. In retail, it's only $17.85 an hour, and in hotel jobs and restaurant jobs, it's only $15.85 an hour. But when you put them all together and you average it all out, it's $24.20 an hour, $50,000 a year. And yet we still have 900,000 job openings across the country. So what's going on? Why is that? Gail, Carlton Place. Gail, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good. Why are there so many job openings?
Well, I'm calling from an employer's perspective.
Okay, you've tried to hire someone?
And, oh, my goodness. I have been hiring for over 35 years, and this is the first year that I have encountered not being able to hire for the positions I have available. I run a youth center in Carlton Place.
A youth center, okay.
Yeah, youth center. And we typically hire students,
right?
Whether they're high school and returning to school or they're going to college, whatever.
Okay.
And we've always, had a lot of applications. This year I got very few. The few that I did get, I would hire people, and I was doing hiring in April for starting in June, and when I got back to them with their paperwork, they said, oh, I changed my mind, I'm going somewhere else. So I go back to the drawing board and I start to hire. I call people for interviews. I set up interviews. Some don't even bother to show up. They don't, call and say, sorry, I've changed my mind, whatever.
Right.
So I still have one vacant position, and of course we've come just about to the end of our summer camps, our summer day camps. So
right. It's almost Labor Day now, right? Yeah, right.
Well,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that position is vacant. But honest to goodness, I cannot tell you. This is the first time I've encountered this in all my years of managing. And I've spoken to some of my colleagues in Carlton Place who run businesses, and they have encountered the same thing. They just cannot find people.
So what have you done to try and sweeten the pot? Do you have any flexibility there? Have you tried to, raise the wage or whatever, Gail?
Well, we did that. We're a not-for-profit charity,
right.
And
okay.
we applied to the federal government for Canada Summer Jobs.
Okay.
And so they pay $15 an hour, which is minimum wage in Ontario, and we pay $16 an hour. Our camp counselors get free snacks and lunch. They get to go on excursions with the kids, Mont Cascade, marked, all sorts of things. So there are some additional perks to the job, and it's a good job. And the students that I have had this summer, they've absolutely loved it. And two of them approached me and said if there's some part-time work in the fall while they're returning to school, they would love to work there. And I've hired both of those people. So it's really kind of baffling.
Baffling. Okay. Interesting, Gail. Love the perspective of somebody who's trying to hire workers. 750-1310. Be right back. Final quarter and more of your calls talking about jobs and the working life on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
That same old train that brought me here is gonna carry me away again.
open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Why are there so many job openings? That's been the topic. 900,000 job openings across the country. We do have a million people unemployed in this country. About 500,000 people are collecting EI. Not all the people who are classified as unemployed by Statistics Canada are actually collecting EI. But about 500,000 people collect EI. 468,000 was the last figure from StatsCan, receiving regular employment insurance benefits. Unemployment rate 4.9%, 500,000 people on EI, 900,000 job openings. What's going on? 24% of all workers, by the way, work from home. Do most of their work from home now. 24%. And 1 million people unemployed. 426,000 people wanted a job in July but did not look for one, which I found interesting from the latest unemployment report. 426,000 people wanted a job in July but did not look for one. Now, we took a call from someone who's kind of in that circumstance, would love to work, but has a sick mother, has to take care of her mother. Can't work, has to take care of her mother. Taking care of her mother is a full-time job. So, you know, it's not like everybody's a lazy bum. Wayne in Richmond. Wayne, good morning, Wayne.
How are you?
I'm good, Wayne. How are you?
Good.
Good. Working hard?
You know, trying to.
Or hardly working?
Oh, no, I'm working hard.
That's good. Why are there so many job openings, Wayne?
Well, I have two theories, one of which will probably make me pretty hated on the radio, but
oh, no.
My feeling is the new generation of workers coming in, they've lived their life a lot more luxurious than the older generation. You know,
Okay.
mommy and daddy buy them a car and
Right.
pay their phone bill and all those things. And the incentive to work at a lower paying job isn't there anymore.
Okay.
And then also on top of that, companies need to advance employees within and train within, because there's nothing worse than being employed for a year or two and then having to train your new boss that comes in.
Right. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
I think that.
You think young people have unrealistic expectations? Is that
Yeah,
one
I
of the
think the sense of entitlement that
Sense of entitlement,
be
okay.
paying more money for what they're doing is it needs to be brought into check.
Yeah, like we got a new guy working on the Rob Snow Show, Noah. All he does is boss me around. Just never stops. Just always cracking the whip. Wayne, thank you. I don't think that's really that controversial, what Wayne had to say. David in Ottawa. David.
Yeah, so I think the whole psychology of work has changed. Like you were speaking 20 years ago that you didn't expect to drive a car or whatnot. 20 years ago, the bus system probably actually worked. We didn't have a busted down glorified trolley going up and down the city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, what does that have to do with
when
job
it comes
vacancies?
To, like the China virus and everything,
Right. David. Here's the guy, he called yesterday and started going on about Q and the Army is taking over. I think he's in with that Queen of Canada person there. He's a bit off his rocker, that guy. Mo in Hunt Club. Mo.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Mo.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, Mo. Good to hear from you.
Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful vacation.
Yeah, it was very nice, Mo. Let's get the pleasantries out of the way. Why are there so many job openings? 900,000 job openings.
I think some of us discovering that there's choices to be made.
Right. Okay.
Like myself, a year ago, I was happy what I had, but I decided, you know what? I got a job offer Monday to Friday. I'm done 3 o'clock.
Right.
I chunked that a year ago, and I'm happy about it.
Okay. What were you doing, and what do you do now?
Yeah, this one involves a lot of driving.
A lot of driving. Okay.
The company I work for, they're into brand new buildings, so they outfit it with fire extinguishers, pipes, and a lot of stuff that you need it for safety reason.
Right. Okay.
So we go to building to building.
Building to building. What were you doing before?
I work at another company that the Crown owns.
The Crown owns. Okay, all right.
It was a unionized company.
Right.
And it really was, there were no, like, the moral was not good.
The morale was not good. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
everyone was passing to the puck the next person, and
right. Okay.
And I decided, you know what, this is.
So this has a better workplace culture for you think?
Yeah, and also you meeting a deadline, because when you start a new building, it has to be done within a year, or like there's a deadline.
Right.
Everyone is doing what they can.
Okay. All right. Interesting, Mo. I want to just fit in one more here just before the top of the hour news. I don't want to keep Chris hanging on the line here. Chris in Canada. Chris.
Hey, as the casual looker on Indeed on a daily basis, there's a fine line between specific skill sets that employers are looking for, example, licenses, certificates, et cetera, and then there's a gap, and then you're down into retail, restaurants, Tim Hortons, and not a lot of people want to work evenings and weekends anymore, so the bottom SU is eliminated right off the bat from their search.
Interesting. Okay. All right, Chris, thank you for all your calls. Very busy hour. And lots of interesting insights. That's why we do the Talkback Hour. I thank you so much for that. Be right back after the news. I'm going to talk about what's been happening at Queen's Park today. Ontario legislature. Lots of controversy about a move, legislation afoot from the provincial government that would see patients who are taking up a hospital bed, elderly patients taking up a hospital bed, who refuse to go to an open bed in a long-term care home could be billed by the hospital. $1,500 a day. Talk about that when we come back. Rob Stone Show, City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 24th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 22. In Smiths Falls, it is 23. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Brooke Henderson, a beacon of golf fans across the country. And that's been felt at the CP Women's Open this week. City News reporter Chris Curries has the details.
During practice rounds, young golfers line the fairways. Brooks Brigade is an autograph section where you can only be so tall to get one. So the future is bright, explains tournament director Ryan Paul.
It's inspiring, and you start to see it where, Brooks 24 and what she's done for the game of golf in the short time that she's been pro is remarkable, and you're seeing the talent that's coming through. Lucy Lynn, another 12-year-old who's qualified. That's 2 events that we've had where 12-year-olds have qualified their way into the tournament.
He tells me that rise in Canadian golf is due to players like the Smiths Falls native and Prince Edward Island's Laurie Kane, who's participating in her 30th and final appearance at the CP Women's Open this week. At the Ottawa Huntington Golf Club, Chris Curry's City News.
And here's the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley with City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Sun and cloud for the most part today, just a slight chance of a shower. The high 29 degrees will feel a lot warmer with the humidity. Some showers this evening, then we'll clear overnight, 16 for the low, and tomorrow sun and cloud 24. For today, the high 29.
City News time 11:03. Canada's millennials are confident they will own a home one day. But as City News business editor Chris McCusker tells us, they also think it could mean a location change.
A Royal LePage survey conducted online shows 60% of Canadians between the ages of 26 and 41 who do not currently own a home say they think they will someday. But 52% say they'll have to relocate in order to achieve the milestone. 72% say they would choose to continue living in their current city or town if the cost of living was not an issue. Now, the housing market in Canada has been challenging for people of all ages, in part because of a shortage, but it's been especially tough for those looking to enter the market. The survey also shows that 57% of Canadian millennials are already homeowners, and for those who aren't, 68% feel it's important. At the City News Business Center, I'm Chris McCusker.
I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So here's a headline I came across this morning. It's about Ontario politics, what's happening in the healthcare system in Ontario. Headline: patients who refuse long-term care transfer may be billed by hospital. Bill 7. Okay. This is something to watch here. Bill 7 will allow hospitals to move patients to a long-term care home to free up a hospital bed. The long-term care minister told her hospitals have had the option to charge patients a daily fee for staying in a bed since 1979. And we're talking about fees that could amount to about $1,500 a day. This was all reported on by our City News colleague in Toronto, Cynthia Mulligan of City News. So as you can imagine, when they had the question period in the Ontario legislature today, this certainly came up. And we do have this clip here. Yeah, we have this clip. So the NDP member that you're going to hear asking the question is Philomeno Tassi, Hamilton West, Ancaster, Dundas. And Paul Calandra is he's kind of the government house leader in the legislature. And he wasn't also at one time, I don't know if he still is, he was the long-term care minister. But let's play the clip here. Let's listen to this here.
Good morning, Premier. A wonderful man in my riding, John Sutter, had both legs amputated and waited months in St. Joe's in Hamilton for an appropriate long-term care bed. While he waited, he was billed $1,034 a day for his hospital bed. He received a bill for $241,956. His family contacted me, desperate and worried. Who can afford a $250,000 hospital bill?
Permanent House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Look, what the changes that we are making in the long term, in More Beds, More Choice Act, are very clear, Speaker. We are trying to ensure that people can get into long-term care homes where the quality of care is better for them. Full stop. I don't think anybody disagrees that when somebody is in a hospital and they've been discharged from the hospital, that the better quality of care for them, where we can give them better services, where they can be closer to their family, is in a long-term care home. Now, the member opposite references something, a tool that has been in the toolbox for hospitals since 1979, Mr. Speaker. Okay. But ultimately, what we are trying to do, the changes that we are suggesting, and hopefully that this legislature will pass, will help us deal with the challenges of acute care, will help residents like the one she is talking about get a better quality of care in homes and communities close to their homes, close to their preferred, while leaving them on the waiting list for their preferred choice, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so that was Paul Calandra from the government side. He kind of handles question period when, well, most of the time, really, when the Premier's not in the House, most certainly. But John Fraser, you know John Fraser is the Liberal MPP for Ottawa South. He is also the interim Liberal Party leader here in Ontario. And he joins me this morning, and I assume you are in Toronto right now. John Fraser, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Rob. Yep, I just stepped out of question period.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time for us, John. It's really appreciated. So tell us what you know about this bill. Bill 7, what is it supposed to do?
Well, Bill 7, what it essentially does is it gives hospitals more power to move people without their consent to a long-term care home that would not be one of their choices, could be farther away, and also gives them, it also violates the Personal Health and Information Act by allowing for a person's personal medical information to be transferred without their consent. So it's violating the rights of seniors, frail elderly, people with a disability, and it's not the right way to approach this problem. Long-term care homes are feeling even greater staffing pressure than our hospitals because of Bill 124.
Okay, the minister is saying nobody will be moved out of a hospital into a long-term care home without their consent. Well, what do you say to that?
If you just read the bill, it's in the second line, it says allows for people to be moved without their consent. And so, what he's saying in response is, we won't physically restrain anybody and drag them out. But you can imagine this conversation. A social worker or nurse says, well, Mrs. Smith, we're going to have to move your mom to nursing home X. And Mrs. Smith goes, well, you can't move her way out there because I'm not going to be able to get to her.
Right.
We're not going to be able to see her. Okay. And then the next response is, well, it's the law, Mrs. Smith. I'm sorry, I can't do anything.
It's very confusing the way this bill is written in Section 7. It's written that a patient can't be transferred to a long-term care home without their consent. But then in Section 3, it says, this section authorizes the following actions or any part thereof to be performed in respect to an ALC, alternate level of care, patient, without their consent or the consent of their substitute decision maker. In other words, if I had power of attorney over you, John Fraser, despite any other provision of this act, the regulations, or any other act. So in one section of the bill, it says I can't be moved without my consent. The other part of the bill says I can.
Well,
how's that for clarity?
Well, I asked the minister yesterday in debate. I said, well, he said, he said, no, everything's fine. We're not going to move people without consent. And I said, well, then why are you doing this bill? Like, why do we even have this bill? Why is it any different than it was before? People are being moved to consent there. It's a normal practice. But what it does do is it puts more pressure on families with the threat of taking away the rights of those people involved. And then it puts, just to go to long-term care homes, they're under more pressure than hospitals. And the thing is, they have no relief valve. Hospital can close an ambulatory service or slow down surgeries. But in a long-term care home, if you're in a bed, you need somebody to care for you. They don't move you out.
Right.
So it's a really blunt instrument.
So what should we do? What can be done? According to my City News colleague Cynthia Mulligan, who covers Queen's Park a lot, 24% of the people in the hospital they're in the hospital because they have no other place to go. There used to be this term called bed blockers. I never liked that term, but they were called bed blockers. They should be in some kind of different form of care. They should either be in long-term care or they should be getting home care. They should not be in the hospital. The most expensive form of care there is. If I'm if a room becomes available, let's say I'm in the Ottawa Hospital. If a room becomes available in Renfrew, should I have to take it? Or should I be able to wait in the hospital until one becomes open at the Carlton Lodge in Manotick, John? But what's the solution?
Well, I think the thing is, the way we've been working all along is to try to do something that's kind of a collaborative solution with families. In other words, you're trying to work that out. Now, if it was, my mom, and they were saying she needs to go to Renfrew, I was going to say, well, that's too far. She's going to become isolated. It's just going to reduce her quality of life and her health. So, but, if somebody, like as a family, if they said, well, Carlton Place or, some place, I'd say, well, like maybe we can make that work because, most families, I think, want to try, and be and be collaborative. And so I think, if you take a look, too, there are some models where capacities in retirement homes have been used, with hospital staffing to support those alternative level of care patients, not just at long-term care homes. There are solutions, and there's no easy fix to this. And I'm not, we have to repeal Bill 124, but it's more than that, right? So we have to provide more support.
Bill 124. Bill 124 is a wage restraint bill. I don't know what that has to do with this.
What happens is the wage restraint in the not-for-profit sector has driven staff away. So, for instance, staffing agencies are hiring nurses away from long-term care homes, and sometimes those same nurses are coming back and working in a long-term care home at 2 and 3 times the price. So what it's done is it's created this this climate where nurses are leaving at twice the rate. Nurses are leaving; they're going to the private for-profit sector.
Right.
That's then selling back services, to the publicly funded healthcare system, and that's the reality is doing that right now would be an important thing to do. Doing it a year ago or 18 months ago would have been the right thing to do.
Okay. What do you make of this idea that let's use your mother again as an example, John, since you brought it up. The Ottawa Hospital comes to your mother and says, "Look, we have this room in Renfrew for you. If you don't take it, we're going to bill you $1,500. Now, the government seems to be saying, well, that power has always been there. It doesn't mean we're going to use it, but the hospitals have had that power since 1979. So what do you make of that, Joe?
Well, number one is I do know that locally that for instance, some hospitals were charged, and for some time, where the copay would be, if you were in a long-term care home, you would have a copay. So that's which is not $1,500 a day. It might be $2,300 a month or something like that, and that's what they would bill as not as a stick to get people to move out, but just as here's what you'd be paying if you're in the long-term care home. You're still here.
Okay.
I think the government should move to restrict that if it's that open-ended. It's just another. There's a lot of pressure there'll be a lot of pressure in hospitals to move people out. That's what this is all about. And what's happening now is, now that you've got this Bill 7, and now it's, revealed that there's this loophole that's been there for, 40 years, that we probably have to close or limit, so it's reasonable and fair to families. It is unjust and unfair for someone to come and say, if you don't move, it's going to cost $1,500 a day. That's just not right. You're
the House leader for the Liberal Party, the interim leader.
Yeah.
What's the status of this Bill 7?
Bill 7 will probably go through It'll probably be debated through this week to early next week. It'll go to committee probably next week. It could go longer.
Okay.
And then it'll go to committee for public hearings. It's up to the government how much they're going to give for public hearings.
Yeah.
It'll be passed, I would imagine, before Labor Day.
Before Labor Day.
I mean, we'll go through the whole, we'll propose amendments. There will be committee hearings. I'm just suggesting that they withdraw Bill 7 because it's, as you said, why are they doing it? It says two different things. We can't do this. We can't do this, but we can do this. It's like, why? It's going to hurt more than it helps.
Okay, John. So, thank you, John. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Good to hear from you. We'll talk to you on Friday. Yeah. Bye-bye. John Fraser is the interim leader of the Liberal Party of Ontario. That's an interesting one to watch. Bill 7 in the Ontario Legislature. 1117, the River Ward councillor running for re-election in River Ward, Riley Brockington, on coyote complaints. When we come back, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Riding requires attention and focus. No distractions, no moment of unawareness, because one brief moment can cost a lifetime of other moments. Everyone deserves to arrive home.
The Maritime provinces are home to some of the oldest settlements in Canadian history. But did you know that one of the first was actually started by black settlers? Take a minute to learn about the rise and untimely fall of Africville. Black people have lived in Nova Scotia since before the founding of Halifax in 1749, but it wasn't until after the American Revolution in the late 1700s and early 1800s that large groups of black settlers began to arrive in the province, many of whom were former slaves promised freedom and land in Nova Scotia. What they encountered when they arrived, however, was racist treatment by their white neighbors and government officials. This pushed many black people to build homes on the outskirts of town instead. But despite the area receiving little support from government officials and lacking necessities like functioning sewage systems, access to clean water, and proper garbage disposals, the tight-knit community persevered, and so Africville was born. For more than 150 years, the small community grew, expanding from just a few homes to a population of over 400 people. Everything changed, however, in 1964 when plans for a new bridge and the idea of urban renewal prompted the municipality to set its sights on Africville's land. Instead of investing in the community, officials approved a relocation program that promised free job training and employment assistance to help residents through relocation. But the reality wasn't so kind. Residents had their belongings moved in city dump trucks and homes were demolished immediately after their owners left. Of the 400-plus people living in Africville, only 14 residents held clear legal titles to their land, so the rest were only given $500 with the promise of more social aid in the future. Not much else was actually done to support Africville and its residents until 2001, when a United Nations report called for reparations to be paid to the community. In 2010, Halifax Mayor Peter Kelly apologized for the atrocities against Africville as part of a $4.5 million compensation deal. In 2021, Councillor Lindell Smith put forward a 7-part motion to plan for the future of Africville alongside local organizations and the descendants of former residents. Today, there's a public park and museum where Africville once stood to teach visitors about the history of the land and its community. If you've never heard of Africville, you're not alone. The tragic story of this small black community in Nova Scotia is not as well known as it should be.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Riley Brockington represents River Ward on the Ottawa City Council, and he is running for re-election in this fall's municipal election. Riley Brockington joins me this morning on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me on.
How does it feel to have hit the lame duck phase?
Well, it'll be a quick 2 months. This 2 months will fly by. Lots going on. But, there's going to be significant changes on council, which is a good thing. And
a good thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, a number of my colleagues have served for quite some time, and I just think it's healthy for turnover on the council every 4 years, get new blood in, new ideas, new representation. It's healthy for our democratic process.
Yeah. You know, when change comes, it can be like an avalanche, Councillor Brockington.
Well, when at least half of council will be changing, so I think there's steep learning curve for new members of council, and I think what's very important is for the council as a whole to bond, to participate in. When a new group comes together and you do, it's almost like relationship building, which has been absent from council for some time. But I think it's very important for the new council to get to know each other and build those bonds together.
Yeah. I guess my point being, sometimes, when the last big change election that I think about, say when Mayor Watson was first elected, defeating Larry O'Brien, big changes on council, and a lot of incumbents didn't get elected. A lot of challengers defeated incumbents, and that's what I mean. So you, as being an incumbent in what is anticipated to be a change election, can't take anything for granted there, Councillor Brock.
Never do.
Right?
I never do. Yeah.
Okay. The idea, though, I just to pick up on something before we get into coyotes. The idea, you spent a lot of the last term, you were virtual. Mm-hmm. Like Councillor Kitts almost went the majority of her time on council. She never met anybody, at the council chamber. So maybe it will be better for council unity, if anything, to be back in the council chamber, right?
Yeah, this very much is a position of being around people, meeting people, talking with people, and you can do that on Zoom. It's just not the same, Rob.
Not the same.
It's not the same or an equal substitution. But also just getting out in the community. It's one thing for us to have meetings in person. It's another to attend community events and sit down with people where there are real issues happening in the neighborhood. Yeah. To listen and see it firsthand. So again, that can be communicated by Zoom or other virtual channels, but there's
as we learned during the LRT inquiry, you have to use things like WhatsApp.
Gosh.
Okay, anyway. I understand.
Which I did not, for the record.
No, okay. By the way, so moving on. Yeah. I understand you're being inundated with complaints about coyotes. What can you tell us about that, Council?
Well, just Riverward's geographic location is home to coyotes, have been home to coyotes for many, many years. So it's not abnormal for residents to come across coyotes. We've got the Rideau River and woods and the experimental farm, put that all together, and it's a great habitat. What I've seen, though, Rob, in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks from residents is not just the odd communication from a resident in a week. We're receiving multiple separate inquiries per day, and we're being sent video, and people are sharing their experience. And I think for many people, they're not accustomed to seeing coyotes from afar, let alone on their street or following them when they're out walking their dog early in the morning. And so that's been a concern for many people, and just trying to share whatever information that I have. The Ministry of Natural Resources has many resources for people. They are the ones that govern coyotes. There's no strategy or plan or unit at the city that looks after coyotes. There is for larger animals like bears or moose. But for coyotes, really it's the thinking is this is their home. This is the ecosystem that they live in. They coexist even in urban environments with humans, and there are tips that we can learn to coexist like any other animal. But I'm just taken aback by the significant number of interactions that coyotes have been having in the community and wanted to do my part to continue to raise awareness. It's normal, but take normal precautions around wildlife to begin with.
Okay. At the city level, at the municipal level, what happens when somebody sees a coyote? Right, somebody's worried about a coyote. Is it the city's job to do something about that? Or?
The short answer is no, unless there's an emergency. So if the coyote is aggressive, if it's attacked someone, if it appears to be sick, that needs to be called in, 311. Obviously, if it's an emergency, 911, but 99% of the cases, it's a 311 call. The city does track sightings.
Okay.
Data is used for plotting coyote corridors or where they're concentrated in. But what's interesting in my ward is, the ministry has sort of overall guidance, cities interested in populations as well. There's a lot of NCC land in our city, including my ward. They sort of have a hands-off approach as well. They're part of the ecosystem. They may track sightings, but at the end of the day, if people are thinking about relocation of coyotes, that falls under the ministry's purview. And again, their opinion to date has been just leave them be.
Interesting. Okay. So if you see one and you're a little bit worried, you want to report it, you can call 311. If there is an emergency, somebody's been bitten or there's been an attack or a house pet has been attacked or something, then you can call 911.
Yeah, any threat to public safety.
Threat to public safety. Yeah.
The key thing to take away, there's three quick things. One is don't feed them.
Yeah.
Don't proactively feed them, but also if it's garbage night, make sure garbage is well secured. Think about if you leave pet food out, if you have bird seed or even apples or other fruit starting to fall, anything that would attract them, you've got to secure that. And certainly don't follow them, don't tease them. Just you leave them be and they will leave you be. And that's the key rule of thumb with really any wildlife.
Okay. Hey, Councillor Brockington, good to get caught up, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. All the best.
Bye-bye. Represents River Ward. He is running for re-election in this fall's municipal election rally. Brockington, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Today is a very exciting day. We are officially opening the Interzip Rogers for the summer season of this year. Last year we were expecting to have maybe 20,000 people, and we actually had over 30,000 riders for the first year. So we're really excited to reopen this year.
That was epic and scary!
You have a really different perspective view-wise of the area we're in. So you have a clear view of the Parliament. Obviously, you're crossing the river, and of course, you're moving from a province to another, which is unique of this zip line. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Rogers has been partners even before Interzip opened, actually. They were all in the first meeting we had with Rogers, and that for us was really a nice commitment. We're really fortunate to have Rogers with us, and on top of having Rogers, it's basically the name of the zipline, which is the Interzip Rogers, that is now pretty much renowned across the country.
Rogers Interzip is a great activity for people who live in or visit the National Capital Region. Get out and have an opportunity to zip across the Ottawa River between Ottawa and Outaouais.
And the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, August 24th. Good morning. I'm Alex Gouge. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, mainly sunny skies, 24 degrees, feeling like 32 with the humidity. Here's what's making news this hour. President Joe Biden says the United States will send an additional nearly $3 billion in aid to train and equip Ukrainian forces to fight for years to come. The package will allow Ukraine to acquire air defense systems, artillery systems, and munitions, drones, and other equipment. The announcement today coincides with Ukraine's Independence Day and the sixth-month point in the war with Russia. Canada is providing another $3.85 million for two projects that will help fund Ukraine's national police force and other emergency services, as well as help advise the country's defense ministry. The Ontario judge poised to become the first Indigenous justice on the Supreme Court of Canada will make her first public appearance since being nominated. Michelle Obasawin will speak at the Parliamentary Committee meeting this afternoon. The question and answer session will allow MPs and senators to learn more about the nominee. Some relief at the gas pumps this morning. Empro says the price of gas fell 5 cents overnight to $1.59.9 a liter at most Ottawa stations. We also saw this price on August 6th, but the next day the price jumped 7 cents. Before that, the last time we saw gas prices below $1.60 was in February. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Alex Gouge. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Two high-profile witnesses this week at the Mass Casualty Commission. That's the inquiry investigating the 2020 Nova Scotia murders of 22 people by gunman Gabriel Wortman. Lee Bergerman, retired assistant commissioner of the RCMP, commanding officer of the Nova Scotia RCMP at the time. And today, for the second day, the current RCMP commissioner, Brenda Luckie, testifying right now. Our next guest is the author of 4 books about the Mounties. His most recent is called 22 Murders, investigating the massacres, cover-up, and obstacles to justice in Nova Scotia. He is supposed to be a retired investigative journalist, but he seems to be as busy as ever. Paul Palango joins me on the Rob Snow Show this morning on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
In Napanee, of all places, in Napanee. Good morning. Yeah, it's great to hear from you, Paul. Thank you for the time this morning. I want to come at this a couple of ways. I certainly want to get your reaction to the testimony this week from these two most senior figures in the RCMP. But before that, I'm hoping you can lay some groundwork for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with how you've been looking at this tragedy. I've read your book, highly recommended. Loyal listener to your contributions on the Nova Scotia podcast Nighttime with your friend Jordan Bonaparte. You're very critical in your book of the response to these massacres, plural, and deliberate massacres by the RCMP. And you describe this repeatedly in your book as an epic failure of policing. Why do you feel this was an epic failure of policing? Well, Rob, when this started, when this began on April 8th, when this happened on April 18th and April 19th, 2020, 13 people were murdered at Portapique, Nova Scotia, a sort of seaside community on the Bay of Fundy, on the Saturday night. And then the RCMP thought they had the killer contained, but they didn't. And the next morning, he wandered around Nova Scotia and killed 9 more people, including an RCMP officer, Heidi Stevenson, before he was killed at the Irving Big Stop near Halifax Airport by some Mounties. And from the beginning, the Mounties said, we did a great job. It was a difficult situation. The RCMP union even went as far as saying the RCMP response was textbook. Government supporters of the RCMP has said, they have praised them. All the main supervisors involved in the case were promoted before the Mass Casualty Commission even had its hearings. And then once we get to the last 2 days where we have, the last couple of days where we have Assistant Commissioner Bergerman, who was in charge of the force in Nova Scotia, and Commissioner Luckie come up, we've been
we've been told it's been a wonderful job by the RCMP, unfortunate. And now they're saying, oh, we made mistakes. Oh, and we didn't respond probably. Finally, after two years, 28 months, they're saying, they're conceding that they didn't do a perfect job. Well, it was far from perfect. I mean, people died who shouldn't have died. The RCMP didn't get in front of this guy at all. They didn't preserve one life. And that's the whole point of the story that I've been doing for the last 28 months.
Yeah, and I want to drive this home, get into this idea, because I think a lot of people who may be only casually following this story, if they're following it at all, view this as one event, a spree killing or a mass shooting, but a singular event. Whereas in reading your book, 22 Murders, you view it, I think, as two events. I don't want to put words in your mouth. It's not one mass shooting that lasted 2 days. It's two massacres. As you say, one on the 18th of April, and then the other the following day. And this is something that you drive home. You drive this point home time and again. So I want you to, why is it important, do you think, that we view it that way, especially if we're going to seriously analyze the police response?
Well, first of all, there are two different situations. The first one is happens on a Saturday night, and the RCMP say they're called to an event, and 13 people are killed in this neighborhood, and they say we have everything contained. The next, they don't put out a public warning. The first three callers to 911 tell them it's Gabriel Wortman dressed as a policeman in a police car. He had a replica RCMP police car. That was a separate one event. The RCMP does not lock the scene down, does nothing to identify Wortman as a dead person, assumes he's dead, they say, and then the next day he rambles around almost 200 kilometers, killing people. No roadblocks are put up. No public alert is put out. It's a completely different set of circumstances. And that's important because the second day especially shows the epic failure of policing. But the RCMP and the government have basically tried to make this look like this was a domestic violence situation that went wrong, and we have to focus on the scourge of domestic violence, rather than looking at the operations and performance of the RCMP before, during, and after these massacres. Because there's no way domestic violence had to do with the failures of the RCMP on the second day, especially.
Yeah.
And then there are questions.
Middle of the night, Saturday night, a lightly policed area, something else you point out repeatedly in your time. Officers not familiar with the area, very dark. Okay, that's the first night. But what's going on the next day? How many roads go in and out of Portapique, Nova Scotia? 3?
Well, basically you have Highway 2 goes out, and the main highway, 104, the 4-lane highway. There's not a lot of roads going out of there.
So how does that happen that you don't close those roads? That's still an outstanding question to me.
They've never really explained that.
Yeah.
They've never explained why they didn't block things off. They said, oh, well, we thought we had him contained. We thought he committed suicide. Based on what?
Yeah.
They were assumptions. Then there were there are all kinds of questions about what they did. What we've learned from the MCC is that for example, the superintendent who was supposed to be in charge of that, Archie Thompson, who was in charge of that area, didn't even show up at the command center, he says, because he didn't want to upset and interfere with the operations. The chief criminal operations officer, Chris Leather, didn't know very much about it till the next morning. Bergerman, who was supposedly in charge, said she first learned that Wortman was in a police car on her way to work on the Sunday morning at 9:30 on the radio news.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how incompetent can you get here?
Yeah, so let's get into these individuals here. Lee Bergerman, retired just months before this inquiry began, Assistant RCMP Commissioner, former top Mountie in Nova Scotia. Who is she? Tell me more about her.
Well, Bergerman comes from a family, like a lot of people who rise to the top of the Mounties. She comes from a family of Mounties. I believe her parents, her father was involved in Mounties, uncle, a sister or two are Mounties, a couple of brothers are Mounties. Like, she's a lifelong dyed-in-the-wool Mountie, and she's part of a group of Mounties who were moved across the country to Nova Scotia from BC, all married couples who took over positions there. And essentially this close-knit clique took over operations in Nova Scotia between 2017 and 2019. And they were the people who were largely in charge when this happened. So the problem with this was they were close-knit, all know each other, married to each other, had weird reporting positions where wives and husbands were reporting to each other. It's just the worst kind of operation you'd want to have. That's one of the problems, and that's come out in another recent report released this week, that this was a problem that was identified but never reported.
Paul Palango is with me, author of 22 Murders, Investigating the Massacres, Cover-Up, and Obstacles to Justice in Nova Scotia, as Brenda Lucki testifies right now at the Mass Casualty Commission, the commissioner of the RCMP. But before that, just a few more things on Lee Bergerman and her testimony. I also found that remarkable. She only learned that the perpetrator, Wortman, was driving a replica RCMP cruiser on the news the next morning at 9:30 in the morning. This is mentioned by callers to 911. You were the first journalist to obtain those transcripts of those 911 calls, the audio tapes of those calls. This would have been, what, 10 or 11 hours after the first rampage started?
Well,
it was 9:30 the next morning.
The first caller, according to the RCMP, the first caller at 10:01 was Jamie Blair. And Jamie Blair said, "He just shot my husband. He's on the porch. He's dressed as a Mountie. He's got a Mountie police car, and then she's killed." Then her son, who is a 12-year-old son who escaped the house and went to another murder victim's house and was hiding in the basement, called at 10:16 p.m. on the Saturday night, said the same thing. And the 911 callers, the 911 call taker is saying, "Well, can you get a license number on that car?" And he said, "No, it's a police car. I can't go out on the porch because he just killed my mom and dad." So the third person at 10:26, Andrew McDonald, knows Wortman. He pulls up beside him and shoots at McDonald. McDonald gets away and goes to a police car at the end of the road, the first arriving police car, and tells him it's Gabriel Wortman dressed as a policeman. But none of the Mounties believe this. And they don't even report this until the next morning when they're apparently told, "Hey, he's in a police car." They completely discount the first three witnesses. And there's other strange things that go on. Yeah. But that's some of it.
Yeah, and during her testimony this week, Bergerman also they continue to defend the use of Twitter as the platform to alert the public instead of the alert ready system that you would use for like an Amber Alert or what have you. So,
well, Twitter is, it's amazing because Chris Leather, Bergerman, and others for the last 2.5 years that we would have done nothing differently. We did a great job. Twitter is, Portapic is a rural area. Nobody uses Twitter there. Who uses Twitter in the middle of the night to get an alert? And that they were putting out these crazy tweets in the middle of the night that were either behind the times, filled with erroneous information, as I point out in the book, and then expecting people to deduce what was going on. Meanwhile, they were telling their own loved ones to evacuate, hide, do all of this stuff, and selected members of the community were given face-to-face warnings and protected. But the general public wasn't. And the RCMP still insists they were doing a good job, but they were doing the right thing. I mean, it's crazy.
Let's turn to some of the takeaways so far from Brenda Lucki's testimony, the commissioner. As you know, there's been quite a firestorm here in political Ottawa about the allegation she politically interfered in an active criminal investigation by pressuring senior Nova Scotia officers to reveal the types of firearms used in the murders. All in an attempt to advance a political agenda, to advance a gun control agenda. She admits that it was tied to a pending federal gun control legislation, but says it's all been overblown. It's all been overblown. What do you think about that angle of the story, Paul?
Well,
for people in Canada to complain about the politicization of the RCMP is kind of funny. I've been writing about this since 1994, about the politicization of the commissioner's job and how the commissioner is appointed by the prime minister and serves at the pleasure of the prime minister, like some of the better banana republics. And we don't see an issue in Canada with this. I see an issue, and some other policemen see an issue, but we don't consider that an issue. So on this specific thing, yeah, this is going on. I don't think I sort of agree with Lucky that it's a tempest in a teapot, but I think it was a deliberate tempest designed to deflect attention away from what was really going on at the MCC. Because the day that this broke, the MCC had finally given in and was releasing the videotape, security tape from the Irving Big Stop in Enfield where Wortman was killed. And I and others had lobbied through Frank Magazine in Halifax, we had lobbied to get these videos out to show that they appear to contradict the evidence given by the Mounties who shot Wortman. They said they came across him accidentally, and they shot him after a little dance at the gas pumps, et cetera, et cetera. But the video showed them going in there at speed, pulling up to the pump beside him, getting out of the car and shooting him all with it. From the time the car stops to the first bullet is somewhere between 5 and 6 seconds. None of that happened, so it looked more like an execution. So the day those tapes finally came out is when this thing with Lucky and the gun started, and the tape story was completely lost and forgotten as the media chased another shiny object. And from the beginning, I was telling people on the radio when I was interviewed, on the nighttime podcast with Jordan Bonaparte, that this is a deflection. It's meant to draw attention away from what the Mounties really did. And so far it's been successful, but I'm not letting it go.
Okay. Anyone who has read your book or listened to your interviews on radio and podcasts will know you don't think too much about how this inquiry has been set up. You think it's flawed, that it's been set up to be flawed on purpose. You don't even call it an inquiry, you call it a spin query. That it's not designed. It's not designed to get at the truth. In your opinion, what makes this a flawed way to do a public inquiry?
Well, from the beginning, they imposed, the one thing about public inquiries, and one of the people on the inquiry is Kim Stanton, who believes that inquiries are not there to investigate or find fault, that public inquiries should be used as mechanisms for social engineering, changing the way people think about this or that other social issue. In this case, they've grafted onto the inquiry its most important role is the scourge of domestic violence. And because Wortman's common-law wife, Lisa Banfield, was reportedly someone complained about her being beaten in 2013 and at other times being in an abusive relationship, which was likely true. But that's not the be-all and end-all of this. But the government and the inquiry have focused almost exclusively on domestic violence as the most important issue to deal with here, and not the performance of the RCMP and the viability of the RCMP. And then to fulfill this, when critical witnesses have been called, like the people who shot Wortman and other police officers have been called and other witnesses, they are not allowed to be cross-examined. That even with Lucky and others, certain questions are not allowed to be asked by the lawyers representing the families and other groups. So they're tailoring the evidence to what they want it to be, not what it necessarily should be or is.
Okay. Look, a real pleasure to have you on the show today with your perspective. Thank you so much.
Well, anytime, Rob. And as I said, I wrote the book so people would have a clear narrative to understand this story, because I knew from the beginning, from my sources and my experience, that they were going to create a commission and inquiry that's going to try to muddy the waters. And that's why I wrote the book, and I'll probably end up writing another one.
Okay. Thank you, Paul Palango.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye.
No problem.
Yeah, Paul Palango. He lives in Nova Scotia now. Is retired, former investigative journalist for the Globe and Mail, worked for the Hamilton Spectator as well. and has written this incredible book, 22 Murders, Investigating the Massacres, Cover-Up, and Obstacles to Justice in Nova Scotia. Joining us today doing a road trip. He is actually at the Denny's in Napanee. It is 11:51, and this is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
C'est pour ça qu'on a le 9 à 5, puis le overtime, qui paye même pas la routine. Anyways. Qu'on bâtisse un bâtisse ou non, on a besoin d'aide. Qu'on bâtisse l'édifice ou non, on a besoin d'aide. La nuit, enfin la nuit, ma maman est sur la party. Elle cherche à avoir ses 100 ans, mais tabarnak, ça coûte cher en dedans. C'est pour ça qu'on a le 9 à 5, puis le overtime, qui paye même pas la routine. Anyways. Qu'on bâtisse un bâtisse ou non, on a besoin d'aide. Qu'on bâtisse l'édifice ou non, on a besoin d'aide. Oh, on a besoin d'aide.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
T-minus 2 minutes, and then I'm checking out of here until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sam Laprade will be coming in right after the noon news with the Sam Laprade Show, here with a little preview. Bruce Firestone on the show today.
Bruce is going to come on, talk about the direction of the city. Of course, Bruce, former owner of the Ottawa Senators, still really involved in real estate, and he always has an interesting perspective.
He's known so famously as being like the original owner of the Ottawa Senators and helping to secure the franchise and everything. But he's really passionate about like urban planning, urban design, and all.
Absolutely.
These things. And,
the very first time I ever heard about tiny apartments was from Bruce. You know, this is done a lot in Europe, and he sort of talked to me about it. So he's looking for creative ways for us to live, work, and play in our communities. So
I'll tell you, one of the exciting things that I think is happening in the city, and I know Bruce has talked about this in the past as well, is it's this whole area west of Bronson, all across the flat, say, up to Preston Street beyond and kind of into Westboro.
Right.
Like, I think in 10 or 15 years, you're not even going to recognize that area.
Agreed.
Like, 100%. You're going to have the new library is going to be there. We hope, fingers crossed, that everything comes together with the Senators.
Right.
Right. And they'll be there. And you have like what the West Indies are doing with the Zibi development there is
incredible.
Like you're taking a whole, what was basically a toxic industrial site for decades and decades and just totally rejuvenating it, right?
It's going to be amazing.
I think there are people living there already in some of those.
Some
condos,
of them, yes.
Right?
Yeah. There's still lots of development.
Oh, there's lots, a long way to go yet.
I always get a kick out of anyone that maybe hasn't been down in that area and they do the interzip Rogers. They're like, wow, they can't believe how much is happening.
It's
right?
incredible. Yeah. I mean, and that's that's all infill, all in the core, like right downtown.
Yeah.
That all of that is happening. And, if they have the stadium there, all serviced by light rail. It's pretty cool stuff.
We can't wait for that light rail to be done, I'm telling you. Wow.
Well, and to work, which would be a bonus.
Working is always good, right?
Sam Laprade is working this afternoon.
100%.
From noon to 2 with the Sam Laprade Show here on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.